Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Punch Up Pod with Lila and Pat. Happy Wednesday. How are you, Pat?
I am very good. I got a new set of headphones, baller status over here.
Look at that.
And I just wanted to share with you that here's our economy. $4.99 set of headphones. I had to wait 10 minutes to get them unlocked from the cabinet.
Yeah.
$4.99. That's how cheap these headphones are. But I just wanted some wire ones because the audio is much better when you run it from the mic because you get the actual mic feedback.
Right.
Instead of the Bluetooth ones. But
yeah, I don't like Bluetooth right in my brain. It's like injecting the cancer right into my brain. I don't do it. I don't like it. Yeah, that is crazy. It's so sad how many stores now, I mean, you know, on some level that's a necessity because everybody now has phones, mobile phones, but you know, baby formula has been behind lock and key since I was aware of baby formula when I had Asher almost 22 years ago. And it's just gotten worse. It's deodorant and razors and like body wash. I mean, just
right. And meanwhile, even the Democrats are out there trying to push tougher theft legislation in California. There's a bill
not against the CEOs who steal, what is it, $50 billion in wage theft every year, but yes, against the people who are struggling to survive and want to look presentable for job interviews and not smell bad. It's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, don't you want people stealing deodorant? I mean, isn't that better for society at large?
Deodorant. Yes. Yeah, I just have to think like, you know, we covered this probably 2 years ago now, and I think it was Lowe's who was one of the few retail chains that wasn't claiming that they were having tons of petty shoplifting. And what they said it was they hired more workers just to go up and down the aisle, which instead of having a security guard, they had a person who actually worked at the store, who knew what was around, who could interact with the customers, which made the customers, I mean, listen, there's some people who are going to steal stuff no matter what, both either necessity or for whatever reason, but like they actually said, because we all know that all that shoplifting was a big lie anyway.
Well, part of it is probably authentic in that you went to self-checkout. You're telling people, hey, you check in, you scan your own things. Of course, there's going to be a lot of things that slide through that system. Maybe have employees.
Yeah. Or, you know, if you need me to do my own bagging, then I'll join your stupid union. Like, I'm not going to take a job away from somebody else, right? And they have people right there who help you anyway, because nobody ever seems to be able to do it all on his or her own when they're going through that. You know, so like there have to be people stationed there. It slows everything down. I don't know.
Yeah. The lines were so bad. I almost never used self-checkout.
Yeah.
But the lines were so bad that I decided to.
Yeah.
Because I'd already been there for 10 minutes waiting for the fucking headphones and I was frustrated.
Oh my God.
I'm like, get me the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
Scan all my stuff. Also this $8 t-shirt.
Look at that.
Baller. It's 15. That's where your donations are going, folks.
No, that's not true. Don't even say that out loud. That is not true.
But I went through the self-checkout and was all done. And I'm like, this doesn't take cash. So this is a credit card only self-checkout with no sign up saying credit card. And that's all fine. I have a card, but my card, I got 2 new cards 2 weeks in a row because I had one stolen and then it didn't work anymore. And they're making these cards so cheap that the chips fail in 30 seconds. So like I can't scan my card, but luckily I had enough. I made it work, but it's just
it's whatever level of hell this is. It just keeps like the rings keep growing exponentially.
It's just even the small things are annoying with capitalism is the point.
Yeah.
And that's not even the big stuff. I mean,
really, really true. All right. I'm looking. I see. Hello, everybody. How is everyone? Drinks for everybody. That's right. I'm back home in Los Angeles. I have my beautiful red fishbowl of wine. So we want to thank all of our wonderful members. Let me scroll all the way up. Here we go to our pup heroes and sheroes. Thank you guys so much. It really means so much to us, and we really appreciate all of your support. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. And just so you know, Lila is tapping out at 6 today, and she will be back, but
Yeah.
she's cheating on my show with, you know, a bigger
Lacone. No, that's not.
Ooh.
Well, no, it's not even airing live. So we're not, it's just a, I think they're going to be doing clips from it. It's a panel
Yeah.
on capitalism. And I think I'm probably filling the middle-aged Jewy white woman actress slot.
Well, if Ron needs some whites, tell him I'm available. I'll just drop
Yeah.
out of our show.
But it's an hour and then I'll come back.
Yeah.
but
So
yeah.
the second, so when the CNN town hall starts at 6, we're going to air that here. It'll just be me on screen. I won't interrupt it too much, but we'll bullshit on commercials and that kind of thing. And then
I'll come
hopefully we
back
get
for the
Lila
end.
back for some
Thank-
analysis of the video
Yeah.
she didn't watch.
Yeah, I'll be able to analyze it. You know, I do my best analysis on things I have not read or watched. So I'll come in. And honestly, I'm just thrilled not to have to watch
the whole thing.
her word salad through the whole deal.
Well, we did pull some clips of her word salads from the last week or so.
Yeah.
And they're not good.
I mean, none
She's
of this
tanking.
is going well for her. Yeah. So, you know, this is what we're in the last 2 weeks. 2 weeks from yesterday,
13
right?
days.
Wow. It's not going great. There's a whole media blitz. I think she's doing the town hall. She's trying to get on to Rogan. I think Trump is doing Rogan on Friday, which I'm actually really excited to listen to or watch or whatever. I think it's gonna be hilarious.
I really want to see her on Rogan way more than I want to see him on Rogan.
Do you think I think he would be nice to her?
Oh,
I do.
He's not confrontational with his guests, and
Yeah.
he's a Labrador retriever with the show.
Yeah.
You come on, you can convince him that you know 9/11 was the Mexicans, and he'll leave the show and go, "Oh, the Mexicans did 9/11."
Yeah.
You know,
that's an interesting point. The only time, and I don't really watch him, you know, I mean, I've seen like the Bernie one and then clips that people share sometimes, but the clip that I've seen that I love is the one with Bari Weiss when she's just talking about who's a toady for, I don't even know what her point was, but she uses the word toady. And he's like, so, and saying that it's just like, I think what DNC people, I don't remember what the subject was, but
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. What was she, do you remember who she was referring to?
I feel like it was around some woke stuff too, right?
I think so too.
Realm.
Yeah. And so, but he's like, oh, so, and what's a toady mean? And she can't answer it. She has no idea, but he keeps pushing her in a really nice way, but she looks like the moron that she is. So I kind of love that. And I could see that happening with Kamala, but I don't think it would happen now. Kind of like with, what's his face from the Breakfast Club. Like when Kamala came on Breakfast Club in 2019 or the beginning of 2020, he was a little more reluctant to be all in with her. Like that's where she said that she used to smoke and listen to Tupac and Snoop or something in college, which was before either one of them was around. Like, you know, and he kind of like got her to do that. But now he was just completely, you know, obsequious.
But look, if she goes on Rogan, that could be an absolute disaster for her because he doesn't like her. I mean,
yeah.
We'll see. And he has no.
Thank you, Roger. That's exactly right. It was about Tulsi. Thank you.
He probably has more Trump viewers than Democrat viewers. I mean, if we're being honest. So
yes, he has more Trump viewers because he has more young men. And you know, the whole thing is just so disgusting because when Bernie went on there and at the end, the guy with the biggest podcast in the world said, yeah, I think I'm going to vote for Bernie. All that makes sense. And you know, DNC talking points came out right away and had to say, like, look at who supports Bernie and how gross is that. Meanwhile, Bernie didn't move right. He just said his whole platform, and it happens to appeal to Republicans also or independents, which is what friggin'
and
Kamala,
the hypocrisy was that all the Democratic contenders were trying to get on Rogan.
Yeah, exactly.
They're saying, "Oh, how could he do that show? We really want to get on the show with you."
Yeah, but we didn't know that until it was revealed afterwards because they were all slamming Bernie, and then people were revealing, "Oh no, Pete Buttigieg and Liz Warren, they all tried to they all tried to get on and he didn't want them.
But he also does dumb things like, elevates people like Elon Musk. And, his views on the pandemic and COVID really were disqualifying to me. But he's a dirtbag, but he's also, I do enjoy his interviews still.
Yeah. I mean, there's not a single person who I feel like checks all the boxes I would like checked. So the fact that he was singled out for it was a strange like coming together of the people in power to try to cancel him. I don't know. It's really very weird.
Yeah, it's silly. Anyone would have taken that chance to go on that.
100.
I mean, there's more views than CNN and MSNBC in one show than they get all week.
Yeah. Like, why would you ever not try to spread your message? I mean, I think the problem is she doesn't have a message and Trump's message is fucking disgraceful. So it will be interesting to see how he handles both of them.
Well, I would bet my life. Well, that's a little. I would bet my $5.99, $4.99 earphones that she does not do the show.
But they're saying that she wants to.
Yeah, I think it's there'll be a reason it doesn't happen. I think it's too many downsides to it.
Yeah, exactly. I'd go on Rogan for sure. Oh, interesting. Zainab saying that he did with Abby Martin about her documentary in the March of Return. Oh, that's cool. I'd have to watch that. Yeah, I mean, I can't stand where they take one or two bits of a person and completely malign that person with the ick factor. And, meanwhile, you're parading around with the Cheneys. It's just unbelievable. Okay. Pat's favorite part of the show. Make sure, please, to like and subscribe and smash that notification bell so I can take that off the screen. And we want to do our cheers of the week to kind of get us started. So this is about how the media has been so repulsively complicit, as we talk about all the time, but both in the way they have manufactured a narrative about Israel for 75 years, and also how they insinuate themselves into the political process and are clearly rooting for Kamala Harris over Trump, which is not their role. But there are a few really great journalists out there, and we mentioned this appearance on Sunday, but we pulled a shorter clip from it of Jeremy Scahill on Eamon's show on MSNBC, just kind of calling out the network to its face.
Bringing it. I loved it. Every second of it.
I've just gotten done seeing images from the ground where children are being shredded like meat in a butcher shop. I don't understand how any of us, whether we're journalists or not, this isn't about objectivity, how any of us can watch this genocide unfold in real time and watch the pontificating of the politicians running for president and not just cry out, this has to stop. I mean, this has to stop. We've looked at this. I mean, I know you've reported on the ground from Gaza. I mean, we're watching a genocide in real time. And I'm sorry, but on this network also, there are people who have promoted propaganda from Israel. There are people cheerleading for those running for office who are lying to the American people about concern for the Palestinians. And yes, we should talk about Yahya Sinwar. But Yahya Sinwar is also in many ways the story of Gaza. Yes, this was a violent man, but his violence was rooted in the fact that he was born in a refugee camp. And Israel, throughout his entire life, waged a war of annihilation against the Palestinians. I'm not here to defend Yahya Sinwar. I'm here to say that we can't talk about who Yahya Sinwar was or what Hamas is without talking about 76 years of colonialism, of apartheid, of mass killing, of mowing the lawn, of controlling the calories. Yahya Sinwar's death, the White House is saying this provides a moment to sort of pivot and to make a settlement. And what does Netanyahu do in response to those speeches from Kamala Harris and Joe Biden and John Kirby? He doubles down. Yeah. He goes full force, final solution on the people of northern Gaza. Yes, let's talk about Yahya Sinwar, but my God, we cannot watch more children being shredded and say that this is okay.
Well, this
is just a political issue.
No, and I was actually going to get to that because I was going to ask you, based on what you've just outlined for us about him, I was going to say that despite the killing of Yahya Sinwar, who was Israel's most wanted man, who was their excuse for basically doing everything as the mastermind of October 7th, we're still seeing attacks against Palestinians in northern Gaza, as you just just outlined with the siege that has been unfolding there for the last couple of weeks after a year of complete annihilation. And this was on the heels of an American president and a vice president who have said it's time for a new page, and the Israelis continuously buffing them and defying every time they've given them basically an order or a demand to change course.
The United States has moved the THAAD missile system into Israel, has troops on the ground. The White House is sort of humble bragging that U.S. Special Operations and intelligence were assisting Israel in the operations on the ground in Gaza, including high-value targeting operations. And we have a lame duck president who really seems intent on following through with his undying support for Israel at a time when an utter lunatic is in office in Tel Aviv right now that is threatening what would amount to just a complete incendiary arson campaign throughout the Middle East that's going to be bankrolled and armed by the United States. We are in a moment where this has to stop.
Right.
We can't just sit here as journalists or normal people or whatever your job is and watch human beings shredded and say that's self-defense. Nothing is self-defense about this. I've covered wars for 25 years. There is nothing about self-defense with what Israel is doing right now tonight in northern Gaza.
Cheers to him, and he'll never be back. Like liberals loved him when George W. was president. He was on there all the time. And when he kept that same focused journalistic integrity, no matter who was in office, and called out the corruption of the people in power, it didn't fly anymore on MSNBC or CNN when Barack Obama was in power. Nobody wanted to hear about the credit card bill or expanding our wars from 2 to 7 or any of that, But anyway, I'm really glad he's back. And I think Zainab wrote that MSNBC has pulled that video down. It's like a 7 or 8 minute segment, the whole segment. Luckily, of course, he's working with Drop Site and Ryan Grimm. They started a new venture, Drop Site, and they, of course, pulled the whole video. So they have it. It's still available. But the fact that they pulled that down, it is just, it's even when they're telling the truth, which is rare, by not telling all, even if the words coming out of their mouth aren't lies, by only reporting certain facts and disregarding everything else, it's a kind of,
you can still
dishonesty.
Put a little illusion out there that you're sort of, neutral, and that's what they do. That's like, they'll have someone like Scahill on once and he's gone. You've never seen him again. Yeah. But, even that segment gets canceled out by 30 other pundits who are on saying the opposite message. So he looks like the radical guy because of the scale and opportunities that they give the people that are pro-Israel. Yeah.
So that is what we are going to start with, right? We're starting with our Israel part.
Yeah. Let's get on to it.
Let's spin the wheel. Then we're going to spin the wheel. Then we're going to hash it out. And then we're going to get onto it, right? My brain.
Or we could just go to my thought, which was feeding my cat ham on screen for half an hour. That's the after party. When Lila leaves, that's what I'm doing.
It's just going to be
strike ham. We'll see how many viewers stick around.
Right, exactly. I think you're actually going to attract a lot more viewers with your smoked E. coli, listeria, boar's head meat.
Excellent.
All right. So what? Oh, okay. We are going to do that. Oh, okay. Here we go. Spinning.
Yeah, baby.
Oh, it's not very loud. How come?
It's not loud enough.
Did that make it louder? Say what?
Let's roll some Kamala this week.
Oh my God.
Killing it out there.
This is going to be a lot of Kamala.
This is the most election of our lifetime. There's this whole, I talked with somebody once who said, if you just look at where the stars are in the sky, don't look at them as just random things. If you just look at them as points, look at the constellation. What does it show you? So you just outlined it, Roland. What does it show you?
Can you say that you were honest with the American people about what you saw in those moments with President Biden as you were with him again and again, repeatedly in that time?
Of course. Joe Biden is an extremely accomplished, experienced, and capable in every way that anyone would want if they're president.
And you never saw anything like what happened at the debate night behind closed doors with him?
It was a bad debate. People have bad debates.
Should he?
He is absolutely.
But that's the reason why you're here, and he's not running for the top of the ticket.
Well, you'd have to ask him if that's the only reason why.
What do you think?
I am running for president of the United States. Joe Biden is not. And my presidency will be about bringing a new generation of leadership to America that is focused on the work that we need to do to invest in the ambitions and aspirations of the American people. So the first time I meet and they're originally from Brooklyn. Okay, so the first time I meet my mother-in-law, she looks at me, she puts my face in her hand. So it's Barb and Mike, my father-in-law's Mike. She puts my face in her hand. She looks at me and she says, "Oh, look at you. You're prettier than you're on television. Mike, look at her." No. Swear to you. I have never told that story publicly.
I'm glad you saved it for a room of New Yorkers.
Was that a story? Like, what kind of story is that? She just wanted to like roll out her crappy,
It's
Jewish
not a
Brooklyn
story.
accent.
It's like a 5-second interaction that all kinds of old people would do with younger
You're
people.
prettier than
And it's
you
like the
are on TV. Like, why is she
Funniest
like,
thing on earth to her, her Jewy voice,
yeah, it's disgusting. Ugh. God, I can't stand her so much, so hard. I cannot stand her. I cannot stand her. What is she talking about when she's talking about the Joe Biden debate thing? Like, why doesn't she have answers for this? Every time I watch her talk, it's like those nightmares that you have still now when I'm, 35 years out of high school. And I still have the nightmare, like, oh my God, it's the exam day and I didn't go to class all semester. That's what she looks like every question. She's like, you'd have to ask him. Like, what is she talking about?
And falling back to it was a debate thing. Like, you got hammered for that comment then. Like, why is that your default answer to this? The same thing that everyone shredded you for. Like the worst at her job as far as running for being a politician, she's not good at it at all.
She's awful. Well, she doesn't believe in anything. Like,
yeah, which makes her a great politician usually, but she can't. When she explains it, it's so clear. Like, that's where she's a bad politician, because it's so clear you're an empty slate with no true beliefs.
She has no true beliefs, and I don't think she's that smart. Like, I think she does. Her one belief is career. Like, she just wants to keep climbing higher, right? That's her belief. That's also, I think, Gavin Newsom's one belief. But he's smarter and he's more articulate, and he can like make it sound like he has an objective and he's sort of progressive, but he's a pragmatic progressive. Like, he can fool people more. She is not fooling anybody, which I know is why we've talked a million times about why they were trying to hide her. But like, this is not going well for her.
Yeah. I mean, Newsom's got a little bit of Obama in him. He's not inspirational, but it's the same sort of, he can give you a rational explanation to something that's completely against what you stand for, but he can justify it in a way that works for a lot of people to go, yeah, I get it.
Yeah. These people are going to be the end of all of us. Okay. So we are starting. Oh, now we're going to do the hashtag.
Oh, okay.
I'm reading everything you guys are writing about Newsom and Obama and the Clintons. I mean, 100%. I can't even listen to Obama speak anymore. And I cried when he was first elected in 2008. We did a bake sale. Like we were like,
Ugh.
and I look at him now, I just look gross.
I don't think I've ever said this, and this is a story.
Okay.
No,
What'd your Jewish mother-in-law tell you?
I had an Obama poster. I had the Hope poster.
I had a Hope shirt. I wore it. I wore it to our bake sale, and then on election night, we're at an election night party. Oh my God. Okay. So we're going to start with Israel and the media's coverage of Israel, because then we will go to the town hall and then do more stuff on 2024. But mostly this is all about media complicity, corruption, collusion. The one slightly good thing, just today or yesterday, Israel put out a picture of 6 Al Jazeera reporters, basically like with targets on their heads. I mean, it didn't actually have it, but said they're all connected to Hamas. So, and no foreign journalists are allowed into Gaza unless you are with the IDF. So this is, the one slight movement in our Congress. Representative Jim McGovern is trying to call for unimpeded media access to Gaza because for U.S. and international journalists. Meanwhile, I mean, that's like a death sentence right now. Any journalist going to Gaza has a target on his back. But thank goodness we need to shine light on this. They're trying to hide all of their war crimes by just killing everybody. But to that end, we last week or about 5 days ago, Alan McLeod over at Mint Press News did a huge expose on how many different journalists were actually Israeli spies and worked for this this spying agency called Unit 8200. I don't know how they, I don't know exactly how they say it. There's Barak Ravid front and center, Barak Ravid, who just, what did he win? The White House Press Correspondence Dinner Prize, whatever the hell, and he's the one who gets all the scoops about how Biden's really angry now. He really handed it to Netanyahu. That's his whole job, is being a spokesperson and running cover for those two leaders.
Which gets awarded at the damn White House Correspondents' Dinner. So if you're a correspondent, this is the pinnacle. Look, you got the president going, good job. And it's all because you're doing propaganda pieces for the president and for Israel. Like, we're just so fucked without the third wall is supposed to protect us. Instead, the third wall is doing propaganda.
Fourth estate. But yes, you're right.
Fourth estate, third wall. Build that wall.
Yeah,
build that third wall.
Campaign. We know so many different journalists who were fired for their take on, or their truthful reporting on the U.S. getting into Iraq. Chris Hedges was let go from the New York Times. Oh God, there goes my brain again. Terrible. Okay. You're not going to help me. It's okay.
Can you beat third wall? Can you beat third wall? Fourth estate, third wall. Close enough.
It's close enough. It is so pervasive that for a lot of people, they don't even realize that it's happening. But in this case, it's directly, they are hiring out of the IDF, right? So this unit, which is known for their clandestine operations, they are also suspect surveillance, cyber warfare, spying, also thought to be behind the Lebanon terrorist pager attack. They are in every aspect of our social media and internet, Facebook, Google, TikTok. And so they are just like the woman who wrote that fake story for the New York Times, who had never had a byline as a journalist ever before about
rape. Beheading.
Yeah, mass rape used as a weapon of war on October 7th, which has been completely debunked. That was for the New York Times. Like, how many people get out of, journalism school, hoping that's the pinnacle of your career is to have a byline at the New York Times. Shares his front page, completely unfactual account trying to use fake atrocity to excuse an ongoing genocide. And there's just no repercussions at all.
And I mean, where all this intersects specifically with Kamala is that she's a tech bro at heart, you know, and that's why the business community is leaning towards her largely at this point, you know. Her brother-in-law is the head of Uber, or
the legal counsel that's trying to help them, like fighting against unions and everything.
But he's largely her liaison to the business community, and
he's like her top advisor.
Well, we're not getting into 2024 stuff yet.
Yeah. But no, all the tech bro stuff, absolutely. I mean, it's so hard always to like do segments because it's all intersectional, right? But yes, the tech stuff, the spyware, right? All of the biometric stuff, like that is, all of it is interwoven. Go ahead. Yeah, no, because we also have like a little clip on this, but so this is Sam Biddle. I've reviewed internal Meta records that show the company's dedicated liaison to the Israeli government has repeatedly tried to censor Instagram posts belonging to pro-Palestinian student protest groups and other content related to the war.
Right. And as Greenwald points out, longtime senior Israeli government official Netanyahu Leduc, let's pronounce that correctly for me, please. Jordana Cutler is now the chief of Facebook's U.S. censorship unit on Israel and Palestine.
I mean, they have a
TikTok's
censorship
the problem.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, they started banning. Well, didn't Elon Musk say that you could get a permaban if you said from the river to the sea? I think on either Instagram
he said it was
or
going to
Meta,
be a bannable offense, something like that. And then also, cis, like, if you say you're born born of the gender you go by, that's a bannable offense. Or
he doesn't like the terminology, right? It's too woke. Yeah. That's their, they're all just going to run on these social justice issues, both right and left, Republicans and Democrats, because they're all on the same page when it comes to war and capitalism. So that's the way that goes, unfortunately.
Yeah. Should we show that clip?
Yeah. Yes, this was, I think it's Al Jazeera that did this. It's a clip from a documentary that they have on Israel infiltrating our social media companies. Are you pushing the button or am I
pushing?
I guess pretty obvious, I think, to everybody.
What was obvious?
That accounts that talked about Palestine were getting censored inappropriately. We had thousands of such cases.
Meta, the parent company of Instagram and Facebook, has a well-documented anti-Palestine bias.
Instagram is taking down my stories.
That post was removed. Shadow bans.
This is censorship at its finest.
Every morning I wake up, we removed your post. I found that Instagram suspended my account.
Human Rights Watch has called Meta's censorship of content related to Palestine systemic and global. We spoke to a former Meta engineer who witnessed the suppression in real time, tried to fix it, and then was fired. Now he's suing.
Why did they fire you?
I do believe it was racially and ethnically motivated. I guess they couldn't write being like too Palestinian as a reason.
And he's just one of many Meta workers we spoke to about an internal culture of suppression, censorship, and retaliation within the most powerful social media company in the world.
I am currently under investigation by Meta for circulating a letter.
Did you feel like you had a target on your back because you were so vocal in your Palestine activism?
Yes.
We uncover how Meta limits what its employees are allowed to say at work and how that affects what you are able to see and share. And the company's deep ties to Israel, which include powerful decision makers.
Someone who was in the Israeli army is deciding whether content about Palestine is allowed to be shown to people. It's deeply disturbing.
After October 7th at Meta, things did change a lot for the worse. If your family members were killed in Gaza, you're not allowed to talk about it. If you do talk about it, your job is at risk.
And some employees say the company's nearly 4 billion users deserve the truth.
You have all these journalists that were murdered in Gaza, injured, risked their lives just to get these stories out there. And Meta as a platform completely failed them. I owe all these people an explanation.
It's really sinister, right? You can't say from the river to the sea. You can't wear a keffiyeh. You can't, the whole reason that the watermelon became like the symbol that Palestinians used was because the Palestinian flag was outlawed by Israel. So it had the colors of the flag.
And that's fascism, right? And so we're supposed to vote for the Saving Democracy Department that is, we're going to have to be expressing ourselves in watermelons here, like that's where 100%. We're at. Watermelon now is already anti-Semitic symbol, according to the what's the Jewish group,
AIPAC.
No, I meant the
the JD, not the
they label everything
the Defense League.
Yeah. Jewish. Jesus Christ.
God, what?
You sure you want me to run the second half of the show on my own today? I don't know.
No, well, okay, I'm realizing because Macarius wrote it's pronounced Likud, which I know that's how it's pronounced.
ADL, thank you.
But Dana. They spelled it. I think they inverted the D and the K because it said it was like Leduc, and I didn't know what they were talking about, but it was just a typo on the Glenn Greenwald thing. But yes, I do know Likud, which obviously that is the party, the far right party that Netanyahu is representative of. Okay, so the other, piece that was really disgusting, and it did come out a few days ago, but we thought we should cover it, was this CNN piece on suicides in the IDF. And they highlight the case of this one particular IDF soldier who died by suicide right before he was scheduled to return to combat. They've never, as far as I know, done a profile piece on any one of the tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of Palestinians who have been killed, or any of the journalists, like even, nobody that I've seen. They've done not one. So this is the cover, and it's really, or the cover, the front page, but it's very small. But the editor's note there as a warning is this story includes details about suicide that some readers may find upsetting, which, okay, fine. It also has other details. So wait, we're going to get to it. But it's amazing to me that is the part they want to be really sensitive about, the suicide. So a 40-year-old father of 4, Eliran Mizrahi, deployed to Gaza after the deadly Hamas-led attack on Israel on October 7th, 2023. The Israeli military reservist returned a different person, traumatized by what he had witnessed in the war against Hamas in the Strip, his family told CNN. 6 months after he was first sent to fight, he was struggling with post-traumatic stress disorder back at home. Before he was due to deploy, he took his own life. I can't see the person's name, but his friend and co-driver of the bulldozer, which is they were on bulldozer duty. His friend named Zakin provided insight insight into their experience in Gaza. We saw very, very difficult things, Zakin told CNN, things that are difficult to accept. The former soldier has spoken publicly about the psychological trauma endured by Israeli troops in Gaza. In a testimony to the Knesset, Israel's parliament, in June, Zakin said that on many occasions, soldiers had to run over terrorists, dead and alive, in the hundreds. Everything squirts out, he added. Zakin says he can no longer eat meat as it reminds him of the gruesome scenes he witnessed from the bulldozer in Gaza and struggles to sleep at night, the sound of explosions ringing in his head. When you see a lot of meat outside and blood, both ours and theirs, Hamas, then it really affects you when you eat, he told CNN, referring to bodies as meat.
I mean, on one hand, I'm like appreciating that this story's out there, obviously,
right.
But how rampant is this when, this is what's happening? They're murdering an entire society, and they're starting first with the women and kids. Like this whole thing about targeting the men or something. No, they want there to be no future for the whole of Gaza and Palestine.
And running over live people and not making any differentiation between who might be, a terrorist, whatever. Bechor, the IDF psychologist, said that one of the ways the military helps traumatized troops resume their lives is to try to normalize what they went through, partly by reminding them of the horrors committed on October 7th. The situation is not normal for human beings. How do I get back home after what I saw? How do I get to engage with my kids after what I saw? We try to normalize it and to remind and to help them remember their value and why they did go to Gaza, he told CNN. For tens of thousands of Israelis who volunteered or were called up to fight, the war in Gaza was seen not only as an act of self-defense, but as an existential battle. That notion was touted by top Israeli political and military leaders, as well as Israel's international allies. Thank you to the US and our arm of propaganda. When soldiers do encounter civilians, many face a moral dilemma. There was a very strong collective attitude of distrust among Israeli soldiers toward the Palestinians in Gaza. There was a notion that Gazans, including civilians, are bad, that they support Hamas, that they help Hamas, they're hiding ammunition. In the field, some of these attitudes change. They try to do all they can to minimize civilian casualties. That's the line. This buried at the very end is the mental health toll in Gaza is likely to be enormous. Relief groups in the UN have repeatedly highlighted the catastrophic mental health consequences of the war on civilians in Gaza, many of whom had already been scarred by a 17-year blockade and several wars with Israel. In an August report, the UN said the experience of Gazans defy traditional biomedical definitions of post-traumatic stress syndrome, stress disorder, given that there is no post in Gaza's context. That one really killed me.
Well, there's no post, and there's no safety, hey, go there, bomb there. Hey, go there, bomb there. Hey, go there,
Yeah.
And what do you think not having aid food come in for 2 weeks is doing to 1 million plus
23 days
starving,
now.
22 days starving out an entire, we're allowing, like, Biden, Kamala should be on TV demanding that we feed these people. And if you want a ceasefire, how can you want a ceasefire and say it's okay to starve everybody at the same time?
I mean, they don't want a ceasefire. They want to destroy it. That's the project. That is the US project. That's the US project. They want to destroy and ethnically cleanse Palestinians. They need this as a military outpost. They want to create their Middle Eastern NATO with Saudi Arabia. That's the whole deal. Like, so it's all that. They don't care. They just,
yeah.
They don't care.
I mean, not related, but sort of related. I saw Kirby on TV today talking about how, thank you, Egg64. Appreciate it. They are killers. I mean, not people in general, but the IDF clearly. But Kirby they were talking about how China just sent all these troops to Russia. And they're like, isn't that a good thing? Isn't it showing how good we're doing over there, that Russia is so stripped of their military that they have to get China's help? No, that's not a good thing. That's not a good thing. That means that we are closer to being at war with China, Russia, Iran, every superpower on earth. And the ones
and
that
Russia just hosted BRICS, right? Like, they thought that
And
they were going to
BRICS
make them a pariah state. And instead, Russia, China, Brazil, Iran,
Yeah.
they are forming, which is, I mean, great. We need a multipolar world, but like nothing that the generals laid out as their plan has come true.
No, and the public is so woefully misinformed intentionally by CNN and MSNBC that they allow Biden to go around there still to this day touting how Putin is so isolated like never before. Meanwhile, BRICS is calling for a end of the war in Gaza. BRICS is calling out Israel. Like, they're the right guys here. We're the bad guys. How is this good for us? And meanwhile, you got gold blowing up through the roof, which is going to break down the U.S., the country, the world running on the U.S. dollar, is not going to be the thing anymore. We are in massive decline in the most rapid pace possible, all under Democrats.
All under Democrats. And absolutely, this decline's happening way faster than I thought it would. This sort of like apologia piece for IDF soldiers who are crushing hundreds of innocent civilians dead and alive. And then, again, like this same guy was on Israel's channel. I don't even know which channel this is, but this is a really good account. I think he's Israeli, so he does a lot of translation himself. I really hate you, BM. But the same D9 operator, that's the huge truck, the construction truck, Caterpillar, by the way, it's made by Caterpillar, who killed himself recently, were interviewed in April. They said they destroyed 5,000 houses of terrorists, but when asked, how did you know they were terrorists? They clarify that every house is a terrorist house. So, they were being celebrated. They were on channel 12 or whatever channel it was, Israel's channel, laughing about it. They posted videos of themselves as they were destroying people's homes and lives.
And they're still out there saying that they are the most targeted, moral military on earth. No one else takes all the opportunities to save people. And he's just like, we just flattened 5,000 houses. They're all terrorists.
They're all Hamas. Yeah. And now they're doing the same thing in Lebanon. I mean, reporters are standing there because, they tried to do the same thing about saying that there was a huge Hezbollah bunker underneath one of the biggest hospitals. But because Lebanon is its own, sovereign country, international reporters are allowed in. So they go in and say, well, the IDF claimed that there are bunkers underneath. They did the exact same mock-up video showing all the ins and outs of the bunkers that they did with the very first hospital that they bombed a year ago, where they said, no, we would never bomb it. It must have been a Hamas rocket. And then when it was realized, so then they show
that fake clipboard that they had, and
like a mine
the weapon stash. It was like 4 guns.
Yeah. But so now all these journalists, CNN, Sky News, all go, and there's nothing there under the hospital. Nothing. Of course there's not. So, but it reminded me of at the beginning of this new phase of the war on Palestine, starting in last October, that Douglas Murray, who's like a far right anti-Semite, but he's also, a Zionist, the way a lot of Zionists actually are anti-Semites. It's that weird circle, the Venn diagram. Wrote a piece about how Hamas was celebrating their attack of October 7th, which made them worse than Nazis, because Nazis at least felt bad for what they did. And that's why they had to drink so much after they killed Jews. No, they didn't feel so bad. And they are fine, whatever. They felt bad. Fine. That's why they moved towards just gassing them wholesale out of sight. I mean, but this kind of way of humanizing the people who are the aggressors, the genociders, is rampant.
Yeah, like pour them their struggles. I mean, the only thing I can say on that piece is that at least it got out the realities that caused that person to be there in that suffering state that they were a part of. I understand, but it's not.
You mean okay? But it is important to talk about, because I do think that when you send people off to war, even if it's a just war, which I don't even know when the last one there's been of that, but it's really destructive to the people we send off to do the bidding of the wealthiest people in the world, right? So I do think war destroys people. I think if you can't tell yourself a story that there's a reason that you're doing these things, it's even more destructive. And I do think that Israel is destroying itself. Like, they are now a genocidal society. I think maybe 6% thinks that there's been too much force used against Palestinians, but mostly that country.
Yeah, no, it's disgusting, obviously.
It's disgusting. And it is self-destructing. And I think that's worth talking about, but not in a way of sympathy.
Right. No, I understand that. But I mean, I think the wars of the future that we're about to see, it's for that very reason. American kids are not going to go fight these wars because they are too informed about what's really happening. Right. So it's that drone warfare is the future. Like right now, Russia, Ukraine is mostly a drone warfare.
Right.
It's so that you don't have to be the guy who drives a tank over a house. You just push a button from a computer somewhere.
That was Obama's whole thing.
And that's the future, because you can't get people to do the things anymore. I mean, in this country.
And that makes it feel like a video game for them. I mean, again, that was something that I think the Iraq war, the collateral damage footage that Julian Assange and Chelsea Manning released kind of showed that. Like that removal from the destruction you're causing, it's like a fun video game. Got him. We got him. Yeah. And then, there was that meme or that, when people would write, whatever you do, you should Google Obama and 90%. And it was because 90% of the people killed were actually civilians.
Yeah.
Good night, Zainab. Thank you for being here. Very sweet. I think it is really terrifying. There are generals right now in Israel who, as they are seeing that more and more war crimes are happening, as this, what is it called? The general's plan is starting to come in, where they're saying, now you have to leave northern Gaza, or because you're going to be starved. I mean, there's nowhere to go, as they get the warning, which Israel tells to its own citizens. Part of the reason that they are considered such a moral army is they warn civilians before they bomb their houses and destroy their villages and cities. But then as they're leaving, or when they go to a refugee camp, they just bomb tents also. So there's really no place. You stay, you get bombed. You leave, you get bombed. There's nowhere where you get electricity or food or clean water or a toilet. I mean, thousands of people share one toilet. But so as this general's plan is becoming more and more clear that that's the intention, is to completely destroy northern Gaza. There is, this ex-general, Eran Etzion, is telling soldiers that they should refuse to serve. In the translated post that he put out, he says, if you are a soldier or an officer, regular, permanent, or reserve, it is your duty to refuse to take part in any action that constitutes a war crime. They are turning Israel into a leper state, Netanyahu and the October 7th government, and are bringing themselves and the officers and soldiers of the IDF to the cells of the accused in The Hague, Brussels, London, and many other capitals of the world. This must not be allowed. I mean, I'm glad it's over a year in. Thanks for showing up, buddy. But I think they are really seeing what they are, who they are in the eyes of the world.
And that directly reflects on us, as the U.S. Obviously, we're behind it all. None of this happens without us, our support. None of it.
None of it.
And we'll get into the electoral part of it probably later, but
yeah,
we're going to get President. We're going to have President Trump most likely because of the Democrats' refusal to fight and change policy on this, to agree with the public on this.
I mean, anytime I ever post anything about our two parties that are really one party, and mostly, of course, it's the Democrats who I loathe on some level more because they pretend to represent me. I already have loathed Republicans my whole life. But, you get a lot of like, well, what's Kamala supposed to do? It's just not protocol to speak out against your president. And then right away, like her staff Biden staff, nope, we are all on board. We're all on the same page. She definitely wants everyone to know that she does not think it's a genocide. Israel has a right to defend itself. We would, all that stuff. And the truth is, this is a genocide. So I don't care about the norms. Speak out. It doesn't matter. It's so much you can go outside the norm that Biden bypassed Congress several times to get weapons out. Biden, you're not supposed to be arming and funding and running political cover for a genocide. He's managing to do that, right? You're not supposed to be arming a country that is also impeding your own humanitarian aid. We know they're doing that. These are war crimes. This is illegal. He's doing all of it. They manage when they want to. They manage to go outside the norms. You don't need to explain politics to me. Thanks, libs.
Yeah, and please shut the fuck up if you're pushing the she's more empathetic line, because every time she says something that sounds a little empathetic, if you break down what she just said, Biden said that in March.
And
right?
Trump said it.
Trump said it too.
6 years ago or whatever. Yeah.
Biden said it in March. And then behind every allegedly empathetic statement, her entire team goes out and they even sent out Richie Torres to say, hey, Jewish people, don't worry. It's all rhetoric. None of this stuff matters. There's no change in policy. It's just politically expedient to show some empathy here. That's all this means. And and her staffers leaked that story to the New York Times last week, but now he's literally out there running around doing events saying this stuff out loud.
Oh yeah.
So it's not like anonymous people saying it. It's like campaign message is that we are not anymore left of Trump of Biden on Palestine.
This is in Michigan, by the way. Torres emphasized that Harris's team had rejected calls by Michigan-based organizers of the uncommitted protest movement to host a Palestinian-American speaker at the Democratic National Convention. Harris made the controversial move, Torres reportedly said, because she didn't want to risk the chance of any speaker opposing Israel. He also downplayed a recent letter the Biden-Harris administration sent warning Israel it could risk losing military aid if it doesn't improve the humanitarian situation in Gaza. They gave them 30 days and then said, don't worry. The letter, he said, was a political gesture that did not reflect any change in policy in the administration. And by the way, if you want to know why she told the story about her mother-in-law, it's to remind all of her Jewish AIPAC voters that she is married to a Jewish man. That's the point of that story.
Yep. I know you got to go.
I
feel like
I have 2 minutes now.
We should spin the wheel and you should have a little bit of fun before we say goodbye. And stick around, people. We're going to go live to the CNN debate.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Here comes the wheel. I'm already red faced. I'm going to show up with a big red face.
Perfect. You should be too drunk.
Yeah, baby.
Don't kick me out. What? All right. Well, that's good. I got to pour another glass of wine and then I'm going to spin it again. A little bit of a fun moment. And you guys should all smoke or drink to prep yourself for the town hall.
Yeah, baby.
All right, it's going to be a big glass. Wait, let me spin
While you're going to be late from drinking is going to make you late again.
Mine still says it's a minute and a half. Okay, wait a second.
Yeah, baby.
I know it is a minute and a half, but
okay. Let's do a timeline cleanse. All right, I'm filling this up. I feel like we should just do a timeline cleanse. Right? Look, I have a really big glass. What do you think?
All right. No, let's do puppets.
Okay.
Sorry, writing.
Why? Oh my God. Okay, I was trying to catch up on comments and was seeing so many nice ones, and I didn't, I just figured, oh, it's another Puppets one, and I look, and that's actually hilarious. I love that. All right, I think it's about to start. I will see you all in an hour. Cheers.
Now.
Tonight, Kamala Harris faces voters in the biggest battleground prize, Pennsylvania. CNN's presidential town hall begins right now.
There we go. We should drink when she does something. I don't know what.
And welcome. We are live from Chester
Help me in the
Township,
chat.
Pennsylvania, Delaware County, one of the critical counties around Philadelphia that will help determine who wins the White House. Welcome to CNN's presidential town hall with the Democratic nominee, Vice President Kamala Harris. I'm Anderson Cooper. Now, in this room, we have assembled a group of 32 Pennsylvania voters who say they are still undecided or persuadable. All of them are registered to vote. Some cast votes for Joe Biden in 2020. Others for Donald Trump. Some didn't vote at all. And for some, this is their first election. Many are leaning right now to one candidate or another, but they all say they have yet to make their final choice. Now, we found these voters working with a nonpartisan research firm, as well as business and religious groups, universities, and other civic organizations. These voters are asking their own questions tonight, selected by CNN to cover a variety of topics. You may see them holding a piece of paper when they're asking their question. It has their question on it. That is a question they have come up with. It has not been edited in any way by CNN. We also invited former President Donald Trump to participate in a town hall or a debate. He declined. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Vice President Kamala Harris. And Vice President, thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks. You have a mic right here.
Thank you.
Thank you
Good
so much.
evening, everyone. Good evening.
Thanks so much for being with us. We're going to get to the audience in just a second. I want to start by asking you, though, for weeks you have been calling Donald Trump unstable, unhinged. You've called him dangerous. You've quoted General Milley recently, who called him a fascist. Today, you quoted General Kelly, who said that Trump repeatedly praised Hitler.
Yeah.
But there are tens of millions of Americans right now who have heard all those things, and they don't buy it, or even if they do, they're still going to vote for Donald Trump. He's arguably more popular now than ever. You have 13 days to go. What do you say to those voters to convince them? Because some of them are in this room.
Sure. And I thank you all for taking the time to be here. And you could be doing a number of other things with your time. So this really is proof that we love our country. People are engaged, Anderson, and really want to talk about the issues. And so the issue that you raise, yes, I do believe that Donald Trump is unstable, increasingly unstable, and unfit to serve. And I don't necessarily think that everyone has heard what you and I have heard repeatedly, which is the people who know Donald Trump best, the people who worked with him in the White House, in the Situation Room, in the Oval Office, all Republicans, by the way, who served in his administration, his former chief of staff, his national security advisor, former secretaries of defense, and his vice president have all called him unfit and dangerous. They have said explicitly he has contempt for the Constitution of the United States. They have said he should never again serve as president of the United States. We know that is why Mike Pence is not running with him again, why the job was empty. And then today we learned that John Kelly, a 4-star Marine general, who was his longest serving chief of staff, gave an interview recently in the last 2 weeks of this election, talking about how dangerous Donald Trump is. And I think one has to think about, why would someone who served with him, who is not political, a 4-star Marine general, why is he telling the American people now? And frankly, I think of it as he's just putting out a 911 call to the American people. Understand what could happen if Donald Trump were back in the White House. And this time, we must take very seriously those folks who knew him best and who were career people are not going to be there to hold him back. At least before, there were folks who we know what he would say, but they would restrain him. Imagine now Donald Trump in the Oval Office, in the Situation Room. He who has openly admired dictators, said he would be a dictator on day one. The former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff has said he is a fascist to the core. So I think that when the American people reflect, especially those who are undecided, on who you should listen to, don't take my word for it. In fact, go online and listen to John Kelly, his voice, talking about what he thinks of Donald Trump 2 weeks before the election, because I think we all know, to your point, Anderson, it is close, but there are undecided voters who clearly, by being here, have an open mind, want to talk in a way that is grounded in issues and fact. And when they hear these facts, I think it compels a lot of people to be concerned about the future of our country with Donald Trump at the lead.
You've quoted General Milley calling Donald Trump a fascist. You yourself have not used that word to describe him. Let me ask you tonight, do you think Donald Trump is a fascist?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. And I also believe that the people who know him best on this subject should be trusted. Again, look at their careers. These are not people, with the exception, I think, of only Mike Pence. These were not politicians. These are career people who have served in the highest roles in national security, who have served as generals in our military, who are highly respected. Talking about the person who would be commander-in-chief, not to mention what we know and what they've told us about how he talks about the military, servicemen and women, referring to them as suckers and losers, how he demeans people who have taken an oath to sacrifice their life for our country. And I do believe, Anderson, that part of this is why, even just this week, I traveled this state and others with Liz Cheney, former Congress member who was a very high-ranking Republican. She has endorsed me. Her father, the former Vice President of the United States, Dick Cheney, is voting for me. Over 400 previous members of the administration, from Ronald Reagan to both Presidents Bush to Donald Trump, even, have endorsed my candidacy. And the reason why, among them, is a legitimate fear based on Donald Trump's words and actions that he will not obey an oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States. He himself has said he would terminate the Constitution of the United States and wants to earn your vote to stand again behind the seal of the President of the United States? No one standing behind the seal of the President of the United States of America should be in that position saying they want to the Constitution of the United States.
Let's get to some of our voters. I want you to meet a registered Republican who's very concerned about Trump's views on democracy and January 6th. She told us she's looking for a reason to vote for you, but is yet to make her final decision. Her name is Natasha Kwiatkowski. She's a student at Bryn Mawr College. What's your question, Natasha?
Awesome. Thank you for being here, and thank you for taking my question.
Thank you, Natasha.
And as someone who hasn't fully committed to either party, how do you plan to address the concerns of independent voters and anti-Trump Republicans like myself who feel left out of the polarized political landscape? And what specific actions would you take to bridge the political divide and create more unity?
That's a wonderful question. I pledge to you to be a president for all Americans. And I think, to the point of, in the spirit of your question, that people are frankly exhausted with what has been happening over the last several years, which is this environment that is suggesting that Americans should be pointing fingers at one another, that we are divided as a nation, instead of what I think you and I will speak for us, I think, who believe and know the vast majority of us have so much more in common than what separates us. And I think that the American
Working on it here.
I have never in my career as a prosecutor asked a victim or a witness of a crime, are you a
You've heard
Democrat or a
this.
Republican? The only thing I've ever asked is, are you okay? And I do believe that is what the American people deserve in their president, and not someone who makes decisions based on who voted for them or what is in their personal interest. And I reference that because, as we know, it has been revealed that Donald Trump, when he was president, during extreme disasters, when it came time to determine how those areas, those people who had been traumatized by extreme weather would get relief, he asked the question, did they vote for him? I believe the American people deserve better. And they deserve a president who is focused on solutions, not sitting in the Oval Office plotting their revenge and retribution.
Let me introduce you to Eric Swenson. He runs a service desk for an IT company in Conshohocken, Pennsylvania. He's registered as a libertarian, describes himself as an independent. He says he's undecided. Eric?
Thank you, Anderson. Thank you both for being here.
Thank you, Eric.
So my question is concerning groceries. Grocery
Yeah.
prices have gone up quite a bit in the last 4 years.
Yeah.
And some people blame former President Trump. Some people blame President Biden. Who would you say is correct? And what would you do to bring prices down for Americans?
Thank you, Eric. And you're absolutely right. You know it. I know it. I think most Americans know it. Price of groceries is still too high. And we need to address it in a number of ways. One of my aspects of doing what we need to do to bring down the cost of living for working people and the middle class in America is to address the issue of grocery prices. Part of my background and how I come to it is probably a new approach grounded in a lot of my experiences as a former attorney general, where I took on price gouging. And part of my plan is to create a new approach that is the first time that we will have a national ban on price gouging, which is companies taking advantage of the desperation and need of the American consumer and jacking up prices without any consequence or accountability. So that is one way. But to your point, Eric, there are a number of issues that we need to address in terms of bringing down the cost of living. It includes what we need is a new approach that I bring to the issue of affordable housing, including, for example, rent. And again, I bring to it my experience, knowing what has been happening in terms of how corporations have been buying up blocks of property to diminish competition, and then rents get jacked up. And addressing that, both in terms of making sure that there is a consequence and accountability for that, but also investing in people's dreams of home ownership, knowing that for too long, frankly, both administrations in both parties, Democrats and Republicans, haven't done enough to deal with the issue of housing. And we need a new approach that includes working with the private sector. I say that as a devout public servant, working with the private sector to cut through the red tape, working with home builders, working with developers to create tax incentives so that we can create more housing supply and bring down the price.
Let me just ask you about price gouging. I looked at your plan. You talk about going after price gougers, and I'm quoting from the plan, on essential goods during emergencies or times of crisis. I get that. How does that help, though, someone like Eric with prices that for years the grocery prices just been high?
Well, first of all, Anderson, as you know, and obviously CNN has been covering extensively what has been happening in the state of Georgia, North Carolina, Florida. It's a real issue. I was Attorney General of California. I was the top law enforcement officer of the biggest state in the country. I took this issue on because it affects a lot of people. And I'm not going to apologize for the fact that we need to actually deal with accountability when these, not all, in fact, most don't, but when companies are taking advantage of the desperation and the need of the American people. We saw it actually during the pandemic as well, where because of supply chain issues, there was a reduction of supply, and then they would inflate the price of everyday necessities. Not to mention, by the way, again, Donald Trump should be here tonight to talk with you and answer your questions. He's not. He refused to come. But understand that part of his plan is to put in place a national sales tax of at least 20% on everyday goods and necessities. And that, by economist estimates, independent economists, would cost you as the American consumer and taxpayer an additional $4,000 a year.
I want you to meet Carol Nakanoff, a political science professor at Swarthmore College. She's a registered Democrat who says she's leaning toward voting for you, has yet to make her final decision. Carol?
Hi, Carol. Thank
Good
you.
evening. Thank
Good
you for visiting us in Delaware County, Vice President Harris. My question is this. If you could accomplish only one major policy goal that required congressional action, what would it be and why?
Well, there's not just one. I have to be honest with you, Carol. There's a lot of work that needs to happen, but I think that maybe part of this point that how I think about it is we've got to get past this era of politics and partisan politics, slowing down what we need to do in terms of progress in our country. And that means working across the aisle. I've done that before. We did it around whether it be what we were able to accomplish with the bipartisan infrastructure deal or some of the work that we have done in terms of dealing with gun safety. But we've got to work across the aisle. And it is my commitment to work with Democrats, with Republicans, with independents to deal with a number of issues, whether it be what we need to do in terms of housing and creating legislation that creates incentives for that, what we need to do to reinstate the freedom of a woman to make decisions about her own body and not have her government tell her what to do, whether it be what we need to do to actually invest in a substantial way in the industries of the future, in American-based manufacturing, in American-based industries where American workers and union workers have those jobs in a way that is good paying jobs that gives people the dignity they deserve.
Look,
all of those areas I plan on working across the aisle and with Congress, including the issue of immigration, which we've got to fix.
Let me ask you, you've talked about codifying Roe v. Wade. That would obviously require 60 votes in the Senate, a majority of the House. That's a big leap. We don't have that yet. If that's not possible to codify it in the House, what do you do?
I think we need to take a look at the filibuster, to be honest with you. But the reality of it is this. Let's talk about how we got here. When Donald Trump was president, he hand-selected 3 members of the United States Supreme Court with the intention that they would undo the protections of Roe v. Wade. And they did as he intended. And now in 20 states, we have Trump abortion bans that include punishing healthcare providers, doctors and nurses. In Texas, do you know they provide for prison for life? For a healthcare provider for doing the job that they believe is in the best interest of their patient? Laws, Trump abortion bans, some that make no exception even for rape or incest. One of the areas I specialized in as a prosecutor was crimes against women and children. The idea you would tell a survivor of a violation to their body that they have no right to make a decision about what happens to their body next. This is what's happening in our country. You all may have heard the stories. Women have died. Women have died because of these laws. And the suffering, I have to say, Anderson, traveling, for example, I was with Liz Cheney this week. She is unapologetically pro-life and will also tell you that she doesn't agree with what's been happening. I find that many people I've met who are pro-life have said to me, you know, I didn't intend that this would happen. I didn't intend that women who are suffering a miscarriage would develop sepsis, as has happened many times. I didn't intend that women would die. I didn't intend that there would now be restrictions on access to in vitro fertilization. I didn't intend that there would be an effort to limit access to contraception. So, you know, this is probably one of the most fundamental freedoms that we as Americans could imagine, which is the freedom to literally make decisions about your own body. And on some issues, I think we've got to agree that partisanship should be put aside. And I'll close with this point. I know it is possible because when you look at the midterms, in so-called red states and so-called blue states, when this issue of freedom was on the ballot, the American people voted for freedom.
This is Leanne Griffiths. She's registered with no party affiliation. She's a student at the University of Pennsylvania. She says she's leaning towards supporting you, has yet to make up a final decision because she isn't sure who's better for the economy.
Oh, God, please,
Hi, Vice
no!
President. Thank you for being here today. Considering you have been in the position of Vice President for the past 4 years under the Biden administration, how can we expect you to deviate from the direction of that administration compared to your own? How can we differentiate your policy and your beliefs from that of Biden's?
That's a great question, and thank you. Well, first of all, my administration will not be a continuation of the Biden administration. I bring to this role my own ideas and my own experience. I represent a new generation of leadership on a number of issues and believe that we have to actually take new approaches. For example, what we talked about in terms of housing. My experience that leads to that priority includes what I did to take on the big banks around the foreclosure crisis when I brought billions of dollars to homeowners that were the subject of predatory lending. I know what home ownership means to the American people, not to mention what it meant to my mother, who worked very hard and saved up so that by the time I was a teenager, she was able to buy our first home. I bring to it my experience actually taking care of my mother when she was sick, and it was, as it turned out, dying from cancer. And so I know what it means and have the experience of taking care of an elderly relative, and I have raised children. And so I bring to my priorities and will, as president, a new approach and a new idea, frankly, about what we need to do to deal with the sandwich generation, which is what we call those folks who are literally in the middle, who are raising their young children and taking care of their parents, which is why my plan and approach says, hey, you shouldn't have to wipe out all your savings to qualify for Medicaid to be able to get support to hire somebody to help you cook for your parent or help them put on a sweater. I've done that. I know what that requires. You shouldn't have to quit your job in order to do the work that is necessary to take care of your children and your parent, because it's overwhelming to try to do it all. And so my plan is to have and allow Medicare to cover the cost of home health care for our seniors. These are a couple of examples, including what we talked about in terms of price gouging. And what we need to do in addition, and it's a new approach that I think is well overdue, let's invest in the small businesses of America. The woman who helped raise us was a small business owner. I know who small business owners are. I know what they do. They are the backbone of America's economy. And for too long, we've overlooked their value to the economy as a whole, much less to the economy of neighborhoods and communities. So that's why my plan, and it's a new approach, is about tax cuts for our small businesses so that they can invest in themselves and grow, and in the process, invest in communities, invest in neighborhoods, and strengthen our economy overall. So those are some examples. It's about a new approach, a new generation of leadership based on new ideas, and frankly, different experiences. I bring a whole set of different experiences to this job and the way I think about it than Joe Biden.
Some voters, though, might ask, you've been in the White House for 4 years, you were vice president, not the president, but why wasn't any of that done for the last 4 years?
Well, there was a lot that was done, but there's more to do, Anderson. And I'm pointing out things that need to be done, that haven't been done, but need to be done. And I'm not going to shy away from saying, hey, these are still problems that we need to fix.
I want you to meet Jackson Weiss, who's a student at Drexel University from Flourtown, Pennsylvania.
How was
Registered
that?
Republican, says he's leaning toward voting for you, but is yet to make a final decision. Jackson.
Thank you, Anderson.
Hey, Jackson.
Thank you for taking the time to be here too, Vice President
You too.
Harris.
Thank you.
Regarding the rapid increase in the migrant population, how will you ensure that every immigrant is integrated into American society safely? What benefits and subsidies will you provide them with? And how long will these benefits and subsidies last for an individual? Most importantly, will the American citizens' taxes pay for these benefits and subsidies? And if so, how much money will be allocated?
Well, thank you, Jackson. Let's start with this. America's immigration system is broken and it needs to be fixed. And it's been broken for a long time. And part of what we need to do is always prioritize what we need to do to strengthen our border. I will tell you, I'm the only person in this race among the two choices that voters have. I've personally prosecuted transnational criminal organizations in the trafficking of guns, drugs, and human beings. I have spent a significant part of my career making sure that our border is secure and that we do not allow criminals in and we don't allow that kind of trafficking to happen and come into our country. And as my opponent has proven himself, he would prefer to run on the problem instead of fix the problem. You may know there were some of the most conservative members of the United States Congress working with others that came up with a border security bill that would have put 1,500 more border agents at the border. Those border agents are overwhelmed. They need the support. They need the backup. It would have allowed us to have more resources to stem the flow of fentanyl. I don't need to tell this state and people around the country what is happening in terms of the scourge of fentanyl and how it is literally killing Americans. It would have put resources into stemming the flow. It would have given more resources to prosecute, to investigate and prosecute transnational criminal organizations. It would have done a lot of good. Donald Trump got wind of the bill and told them, don't put it forward. He killed the bill because he'd prefer to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem. We have to have a secure border, and we have to have a comprehensive pathway for citizenship. And that includes requiring people, hardworking people, to earn citizenship and do it in a comprehensive, humane, and orderly manner.
Let me ask you about that. I mean, you talk about the bill that Donald Trump quashed, that was in 2024. You talk about the bill he tried to get passed in 2021. That wasn't able to get passed. 2022, 2023, there were record border crossings. Your administration took hundreds of executive actions. It didn't stem the flow. Numbers kept going up. Finally, in 2024, just in June, 3 weeks before the first presidential debate with Joe Biden, you institute executive actions that had a dramatic impact, really shut down people crossing over. Why didn't your administration do that in 2022, 2023?
First of all, you're exactly right, Anderson. And as of today, we have cut the flow of immigration by over half. In fact, the numbers I saw most recently, illegal immigration.
But if it was that easy with that executive action, why not do it in 2022, 2023?
Because we were working with Congress and hoping that actually we could have a long-term fix to the problem instead of a short-term fix.
You couldn't have done one and both at the same time?
Well, here's the thing. We have to understand that ultimately this problem is going to be fixed through congressional action. Congress has the authority and the purse. I hate to use DC terms, but literally they write the checks. Part of the issue is, in order to really fix the problem at the border, I was just at the border recently talking with border agents. You know what they talk about? Yes, they are overwhelmed. They're working around the clock. And the other thing that they talk to me about, we need more judges down there to deal with asylum claims. We need more personnel down there to deal with processing. But Anderson, and that's where Congress kicks in terms of dedicating the resources to actually fixing the problem. We have dealt with it such that, to your point, we now, as of today, as of our visit, have lower undocumented immigrants and illegal immigration than Trump when he left office.
That's true.
But we need a permanent solution, and that requires bipartisan work.
Do you wish you'd done those executive orders in 2022, 2023?
I think we did the right thing, but the best thing that can happen for the American people is that we have bipartisan work happening, and I pledge to you that I will work across the aisle to fix this long-standing problem. I think the American people are demanding it on both sides of the aisle, and it's time we actually put the partisan approach to this aside. We know what can work.
Well, let's talk about this compromise bill that you want to pass if you're elected. You said that's going to be a priority. It includes $650 million in funding for the border wall. That's something Republicans wanted. That was part of the compromise. Under Donald Trump, you criticized the wall more than 50 times. You called it stupid, useless, and a medieval vanity project. Is a border wall stupid?
Well, let's talk about Donald Trump and that border wall. So remember, Donald Trump said Mexico would pay for it? Come on, they didn't. How much of that wall did he build? I think the last number I saw is about 2%. And then when it came time for him to do a photo op, you know where he did it? In the part of the wall that President Obama built.
But you're agreeing to a bill that would earmark $650 million to continue building that wall.
I pledge that I am going to bring forward that bipartisan bill to further strengthen and secure our border. Yes, I am. And I'm going to work across the aisle to pass a comprehensive bill that deals with a broken immigration system. I think Jackson's question, part of it was to acknowledge that America has always had migration, but there needs to be a legal process for it. People have to earn it. And that's the point that I think is the most important point that can be made, which is we need a president who is grounded in common sense and practical outcomes. Like, let's just fix this thing. Let's just fix it. Why is there any ideological perspective on this? Let's just fix the problem.
To fix the problem, you're doing this compromise bill. It does call for $650 million that was earmarked under Trump to actually still go to build the wall.
I'm not afraid of good ideas where they occur.
So you don't think it's stupid anymore?
I think what he did and how he did it did not make much sense, because he actually didn't do much of anything. I just talked about that wall, right? We just talked about it. He didn't actually do much of anything.
But you do want to build some wall.
I want to strengthen our border.
This is Annalise Keene. She's from Philadelphia. She works as a fundraiser for Habitat for Humanity. She's registered with no party affiliation. She says she's a Democrat. She's leaning toward voting for you, but says she's yet to make her final decision, in part because of the conflict in the Middle East. Annalise?
Thank you, and good evening, Madam Vice President.
Good evening.
My question is, as president, what would you do to ensure not another Palestinian dies due to bombs being funded by U.S. tax dollars?
So I will say, and I think this is to your point, far too many innocent Palestinian civilians have been killed. It's unconscionable. And we are now at a place where, with Sinwar's death, I do believe we have an opportunity to end this war, bring the hostages home, bring relief to the Palestinian people, and work toward a two-state solution where Israel and the Palestinians in equal measure have security, where the Palestinian people have dignity, self-determination, and the safety that they so rightly deserve.
What do you say to voters who are thinking about supporting a third-party candidate or staying on the couch, not voting at all because of this issue?
Listen, I am not going to deny the strong feelings that people have. I don't know that anyone who has seen the images who would not have strong feelings about what has happened, much less those who have relatives who have died and been killed. And I know people and I've talked with people. So I appreciate that. But I also do know that for many people who care about this issue, they also care about bringing down the price of groceries. They also care about our democracy and not having a president of the United States who admires dictators and is a fascist. They also care about the fact that we need practical, common sense solutions from a leader who is willing to work across the aisle on behalf of the American people and not themselves. They want a president who cares about a fundamental freedom to make decisions about your own body, understanding that we're not trying to change anyone's belief, but let's not have the government telling women what to do with their body.
I want you to meet Beth Sandberg. She's a realtor, a mom of four from Ballackinwood, Pennsylvania. She's a registered Democrat, says she's undecided because of concerns about anti-Semitism. Beth?
Hi, thank you for being here.
Thank you,
Thank
Beth.
you for remembering we need to bring the hostages home.
Of course.
The rise of anti-Semitism and violence from anti-Semitism has risen greatly on college campuses and on our city streets in the last year. How would you combat this growing trend and protect our young adults?
Thank you, Beth. You are right, and I will say that we have seen a rise in anti-Semitism. It is something that we have to be honest about and we have to deal with. As Attorney General, I actually published a hate crimes report on a regular basis, and anti-Semitism was among the highest forms of hate in our country, and this was before October 7. And we know what we've seen since. Part of what we've got to do is talk with people so that they understand what are the tropes, what are the roots of what we are seeing, so that we can actually have people be more understanding. We need to have laws in place that make those who would commit crimes on behalf of anti-Semitism and hate, that they pay a serious consequence. We need to have the deterrent so that doesn't happen. We need to ensure that college students are safe in their school and feel safe to be able to go to class. But I'm going to tell you what doesn't help. Again, I invite you to listen and go online to listen to John Kelly, the former chief of staff of Donald Trump, who has told us, Donald Trump said, why aren't my generals like those of Hitler's? Like Hitler, who has referred several times, we've heard the reports for years.
Do you believe Donald Trump is anti-Semitic?
I believe Donald Trump is a danger to the well-being and security of America.
He has said that he's casting himself as a protector of Israel. Do you believe you would be more pro-Israel than Donald Trump?
I believe that Donald Trump is dangerous. I believe that when you have a president of the United States who has said to his generals, who work for him because he is commander-in-chief, these conversations, I assume many of them took place in the Oval Office. And if the president of the United States, the commander-in-chief, is saying to his generals, in essence, why can't you be more like Hitler's generals, Anderson? Come on. This is a serious, serious issue. And we know who he is. He admires dictators, sending love letters back and forth with Kim Jong-un. Talks about the president of Russia, and then most recently, the reports are that in the height of COVID, when most Americans could not get their hands on a COVID test, Americans were dying by the hundreds a day. He secretly sent COVID tests to the president of Russia for his personal use. So again, this election in 13 days is presenting the American people with a very significant decision. And on the one side, on this issue of who is going to model what it means to use the bully pulpit of the President of the United States in a manner that in tone, word, and deed is about lifting up our discourse, fighting against hate, as opposed to fanning the flames of hate, which Donald Trump does consistently. I'm going to tell you, we are an incredible country, and we love our country. Y'all wouldn't be here unless we love our country. And there are certain things where we've just got to come together and realize that we do believe in the importance of healthy debate on real issues, but there are certain standards we've got to have. And, you know, another point that even John Kelly talked about, I believe, and many have, is January 6th, where you have the President of the United States defying the will of the people in a free and fair election and unleashing a violent mob who attacked the United States Capitol. 140 law enforcement officers were attacked. Some were killed. And so I say that to say the American people deserve to have a president who encourages healthy debate, works across the aisle, not afraid of good ideas wherever they come from, but also maintains certain standards about how we think about the role and the responsibility, and certainly not comparing oneself in a clearly admiring way to Hitler.
We're going to take a quick break. We'll have more from the CNN Presidential Town Hall with Vice President Kamala Harris.
Oh, good. That was fun. I think we should roll some cat fights or so. Or we watch dogs peeing. Here's cat fights. This is a little cleanse the palate here.
Sure, she will solve and get Long live the king. Oh my God! Stop it!
Hey.
Oh shit. I said the brilliantest stuff right there. Now I have to repeat it. I was just asking what you guys think about the debate so far. To me, it's a 100% scripted commercial so far. I mean, they even had the Palestine question come before the Jewish question. Obviously, that's a planned script, so that you no matter what you feel about her Palestine answer, they want you to walk away with some empathy for the anti-Semitism, and that's kind of the playbook there. I don't know. She hasn't gone 5% off the script that she's had and all these answers. Even like there's nothing revealing today that you didn't know already. I don't know who's going to watch this and think, well, now I know more about her or her positions or anything. Like it's just the same emptiness so far for me. I don't know where you guys are at, but yeah, I don't know how long this is going to go. So I'm going to roll some more cat footage until we're back.
I think I like when it rains. You told me to go to the light. And what it's like to feel your pain. Now I'm okay if you're alright. I start to wonder why I came. I dreamed of things you said to me. We stand at your place while it rains. We talk and we laugh and watch TV.
Excuse me. I don't know if there's enough alcohol to get me through this, even though we only have another half an hour or so left. I don't know what you guys' takes are on this so far, but is there anything that anyone has learned that they didn't know already about her positions? I can't imagine this changing anyone's mind to vote for her. If you're supporting Palestine, this just turned you off. If you're wondering if she's Israeli enough, I don't know. Maybe you got something out of it, but who's that? Like, people's minds are made up. What you need to do is show your team, the people who backed you to this point 2 weeks before the election, that it's important to get out there and canvass and ring doorbells and make people enthusiastic to show up and vote. That's the period we're at. And nothing here is changing anyone's mind or making them enthusiastic to vote.
Do you pray every day?
I do pray every day. I do pray every day, sometimes twice a day. I grew up, so we grew up a little neighborhood church in Oakland, 23rd Avenue Church of God. And I was raised to believe in a loving God, to believe that your faith is a verb, you live your faith. And that the way that one should do that is that your work and your life's work should be to think about how you can serve in a way that is uplifting other people, that is about caring for other people. And that guides a lot of how I think about my work and what is important.
Let's go to the voters. I want you to meet Joe Donahue from Bucks County, Pennsylvania. He works in customer service for a local retailer. He serves as a local election official. He's a registered Republican who says he's undecided, doesn't agree with your stance on abortion, but he is concerned about what he calls Trump's demeanor and actions on January 6th. Joe?
Thank you, Madam Vice President, and thank you, Anderson. Madam Vice President, everybody as human beings, we're not perfect. We have our flaws. We make mistakes. We have our weaknesses. And the office of the presidency can sometimes bring those weaknesses out in ways that the incumbent may not expect. What weaknesses do you bring to the table, and how do you plan to overcome them while you're in office?
That's a great question, Joe. Well, I am certainly not perfect. So let's start there. And I think that perhaps a weakness, some would say, but I actually think it's a strength, is I really do value having a team of very smart people around me who bring to my decision-making process different perspectives. My team will tell you, I am constantly saying, let's kick the tire on that. Let's kick the tires on it. Because listen, as I mentioned earlier, I started my career as a prosecutor. I was a courtroom prosecutor. I've tried everything from low-level offenses to homicides. And I learned at a very early stage of my career and adult life that my actions have a direct impact on real people in a very fundamental way. When I was Attorney General of California, I was Attorney General of what is the 5th largest economy in the world, and acutely aware that my words could move markets. So I take my role and responsibility as an elected leader very seriously, and I know the impact it has on so many people I may never meet. And that is why I engage and bring folks around. So I may not be quick to have the answer as soon as you ask it about a specific policy issue sometimes, because I'm going to want to research it. I'm going to want to study it. I'm kind of a nerd. Please, no! I confess. And some might call that a weakness, especially if you're, in an interview or just kind of, being asked a certain question and you're expected to have the right answer right away. But that's how I work.
I don't think I've ever heard the former president admit a mistake. A lot of politicians don't. Is there something you can point to in your life, political life, or in your life in the last 4 years that you think is a mistake that you have learned from?
I mean, I've made many mistakes. And they range from, if you've ever parented a child, you make lots of mistakes too. In my role as vice president, I mean, I've probably worked very hard at making sure that I am well versed on issues, and I think that is very important. It's a mistake not to be well versed on an issue and feel compelled to answer a question.
I want you to meet Pam Thistle. She's from Winmore, Pennsylvania. She's a realtor. She's a widow. Her husband, Mike, died just a year ago. She has 2 daughters in college. She registered with no party affiliation and says she's undecided. She has concerns about how you would handle the economy. Pam?
Thank you. And thank you, Anderson. And happy belated birthday to.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry for your loss.
Oh, thank you. Yes. And I'm really appreciative for you to be here and get to know you. When you talk about rich people paying their fair share, can you be more specific? Income taxes are already on a graduated scale, where the more you make, the higher percentage you pay in taxes. So the rich are paying a disproportionate amount in taxes as it is. Over 40% of Americans don't pay any income taxes. Also, the really high earners may move their money offshore if there are disincentives in the US. This could impact the economy. I would like to hear more nuts and bolts about your economic plans.
Sure. Thank you, Pam. So first of all, it is the case in the United States of America that billionaires on average pay less taxes as a percentage than
teachers and firefighters and
Yeah.
nurses.
I'm talking
And
about
that-
hard workers like pound the street, have some success.
Yes, no, I understand,
Yes.
but I want to just let's
Not
set
the
this
really high.
Let's set the scene, right?
Yeah.
So when I say that the richest among us need to pay their fair share,
Okay.
I am referencing that, and I need to reference that because sadly, Donald Trump, when he was president, gave tax cuts to the richest, to billionaires and big corporations, which added trillions of dollars to our deficit. So that sadly needs to be said in a way that should be obvious to your point, but is not given what he did. Now, in terms of what we need to do to bring down taxes, I have pledged and have a plan for a middle-class tax cut that would affect 100 million Americans, including, for example, what we will do around small businesses in terms of tax deductions, in terms of what small businesses are now being mired in terms of a bureaucracy around they have to fill out and do their taxes in a way that actually holds them back. Part of my plan includes extending a middle-class tax cut that would include a $6,000 tax cut, essentially a child tax credit for parents and young parents in particular, knowing that the vast majority of our parents have a natural desire to parent their children well, but not always the resources. So this is going to include an extra amount of just money that people can use to pay for childcare, which is far too expensive for too many working families. And part of the issue here is this. We cannot, and I will not, raise taxes on anyone making less than $400,000 a year, but we do need to take seriously the system that benefits the richest and does not help out working middle-class Americans. I come from the middle class, and I believe that the middle class needs tax breaks to be able to actually not just get by, but get ahead.
So you're saying, well, what you're saying is anyone under 400,000 won't have taxes raised. Or are you saying that anyone above 400,000 will have a tax raise?
I'm saying that there is going to be a parity around what the richest people pay in terms of their taxes. Right now, Anderson, you know, the document, it is well documented that some of the richest people in our country have gotten away with a zero tax rate.
But if you're earning $500,000, $600,000, $700,000 under your plan, there's a good chance your taxes go up.
We can't have this conversation without knowing it's a very complicated situation, right? If you're talking about a small business owner, I'm going to cut taxes for small businesses, right? Because I know that they need the overhead, the money that they need for overhead to actually benefit the growth of their business, which benefits our economy as a whole.
Let's go to, actually, I want to reference something that about Pam. Pam, we mentioned her husband, Steve, died a year ago. You've talked about your mom, Kamala Harris, who died 15 years ago. What has grief been like for you? Do you still grieve?
Yeah, you don't stop grieving. You don't stop grieving. I mean, I think that there is, there are like two sides to a coin when you have lost somebody you love. Or that two sides to a coin, that phrase becomes evident, which is if you have had the blessing of a close and important relationship with someone, then when you have that, the other side of the coin is that when you lose them, the grief becomes even deeper. But I also believe that, for example, anyone who has lost a family member through cancer or an illness, my mother died from cancer. It is important to try and remember them as they lived and not as they died, because the grief can really weigh you down. I think the brain has a way of, when you're grieving, really spiraling down. And it's important, I think, to try and remember those you have lost in a way they'd want to be remembered, as being vibrant. And I think it's important to just to grieve as one does. I don't think there's any correct or proper way to grieve. And the most important thing is I think that people do not suppress what they're feeling at any moment. And the rest of us should give them grace to go through it as they will.
We're going to take a short break. We'll be right back with more from the CNN Presidential Town Hall with Vice President Kamala Harris.
What the fuck was that? Like, how did that educate anyone on her policies? How did that do anything but plant some fake empathy for somebody who lost their parent? Like, oh, did you have a cat die? Did you have a dog one time that lost its life? Tell us about that. Let's hear about that. I mean, that's so empty. And a journalist with 2 weeks to go in Anderson Cooper's position should do some journalism here, considering how scripted this entire event is and how all of her interviews, even with all these softballs, she's blowing it tonight. I mean, terrible. Anyway, I won't make you suffer too much. Let's watch some people bowling, because bowling is great. Where is it? Oh, hang on 1 second. Let me cue this thing up. But yeah, so far, awful. I guess we have a half an hour left now. So if you've been suffering through this, please treat yourself to something. I'm going to go with the beer. Yeah. Yeah, I don't think she's moving anyone on this tonight. I mean, people have made up their mind. They just need to have a reason. Give me a reason to show up to the polls. And even the scary Trump stuff isn't very scary, what she put out there. I mean, it's not something we haven't heard. I mean, bowling, please. Yeah, I agree. All right, here we go.
What kind of angle is this? Oh my. What kind of angle is this? Oh my.
So weird, but we should be back on here in a second with the CNN stuff. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize my mic was muted. I don't know why that video is all jacked up and stopping. I blame Lila. She wasn't in charge of that at all, but she's not here, so let's put it on her. Pretty much her fault entirely. Yeah, there's still a commercial. Yeah, I mean, you got Dick Cheney. I mean, the home stretch, I mean, they broke out Obama to shame black people.
And we are back with Vice President Kamala Harris. I want you to meet Rob McPherson. He's the Chief Marketing Officer for a local organization. He's registered Republican from Media, Pennsylvania, who told us he's leaning towards voting for you, but has concerns about what he calls shifts in your policy positions. Rob?
Thank you. Thank you for being here, Vice President Harris. So welcome to Delco.
Thank you.
Here in Delco, we pride ourselves on being authentic.
Yeah.
And much of what we have seen, much of what you've been saying with regard to issues like law and order and fracking reflect a more centrist view than what people are used to hearing from Kamala Harris, leaving some voters to wonder about the authenticity of your current, more moderate positions. Can you talk a little bit about how your positions have shifted and why?
Sure, and thank you. So first of all, on fracking, I've been very clear. We kind of dispensed with this in 2020. I am not going to ban fracking. I did not as vice president. In fact, as vice president, I cast the tie-breaking vote that now has opened up more fracking leases. My value on the issue of what we need to do to invest in a clean energy economy and a clean energy future has not changed. But frankly, I now have the experience and perspective of having been vice president for almost 4 years. I've traveled the country. I know that we can invest in a clean energy economy and still not ban fracking and still work toward what we need to do to create more jobs and create US-based jobs in a way that will be globally competitive. On the issue of law and order, as you mentioned, I think there's just a whole lot of misinformation, to be honest with you. I have personally prosecuted very serious crime. It's how I started my career. I spent most of my career as a prosecutor, not in Washington, D.C. And as my first priority had and remains as a first priority to me, the safety of the American people. So that has not changed. And sadly, I think that there's a bit of misinformation, if not more than a bit. But I'm glad that you raised the subject so that I can address it. But just if you don't mind, just let me just finish. Because I think the spirit of your question is really important, and I'm glad you raised it. Our country deserves to have a president of the United States who is not afraid of good ideas and does not stand on pride. If a perspective needs to be informed by different points of view to build consensus and to have a common sense approach, I'm never going to shy away from good ideas. And I'm not going to feel the need to have pride associated with a position that I've taken when the important thing is to build consensus to fix problems. I believe in fixing problems. I love fixing problems. And so I pledge to you to be a president who not only works for all Americans, but works on getting stuff done. And that means compromise. And it doesn't mean compromising your values or your principles, but it does mean working to get stuff done. And I pledge to you I will do that.
Just to be clear, though, what he's referring to, and you point out to when you're running for vice president in 2020, you were not talking about banning fracking, but
no, Anderson, I pledged that I would not ban fracking.
Right, I know. You said you would not ban fracking.
Correct.
You know, you had said in the 2019 town hall, there's no question I'm in favor of banning fracking. In 2017, you talked about Medicare for all. You talked about 2019, you raised a hand in debate about if border crossings should be decriminalized. Are all of those issues, which those are not your positions now, are all those issues that you're saying through consensus and getting stuff done, you have evolved on?
Well, no, let's take, for example, the issue of Medicare. My point has always been that access to health care should not just be a privilege of those who can afford it. It should be a right for all people. So that is why I have worked on doing what we have done to, one, allow Medicare to negotiate against the big pharmaceutical companies to bring down the cost of prescription medication. We've achieved that in terms of capping the cost of insulin for seniors at $35 a month, capping the cost of annual prescriptions at $2,000 a year for seniors. But my plan moving forward, based on that very principle that I've always had, is as president to have that cap be for everyone and not just for our seniors. The work that I have done that has been about recognizing the importance of dealing with border security, that has never changed. As I said, I have prosecuted transnational criminal organizations. That I did for years before I ever ran in 2019.
I mean, you did raise your hand saying in a debate when asked if border crossing should be decriminalized, but obviously that is not your position.
I never intended, nor will I ever allow America to have a border that is not secure. I believe we need to deal with illegal immigration. There needs to be consequences, which is why part of my plan that I have outlined, and again, please go to kamalaharris.com. Sorry to throw a website on you, but why not? And you will see that part of my plan includes what we need to do to actually do more as it relates to putting resources in, including increasing penalties for illegal crossing.
And just finally on fracking, you said you're clear you would not ban it as president.
No, I would not ban it as president.
Right, I know you're clear on that. Do you think it is bad for the environment, though?
I think that we have proven that we can invest in a clean energy economy. We can mitigate greenhouse gas emissions. We can work on and sustaining what we need to do to protect this beautiful earth of ours and not ban fracking.
Time is short, so I want to get some more voters in. Tanisha Spall from Lansdowne, Pennsylvania. She works as an education administration manager for the Pennsylvania Department of Corrections. The Democrats, and she's leaning towards supporting you, has yet to make her final decision. Tanisha, welcome.
Thank you, Anderson. Thank you, Madam Vice
Thank
President,
you.
for joining us this evening.
Of course.
I appreciate that you did acknowledge that we are a country that is faced with problems and issues. With the Supreme Court being plagued with issues, would you be in favor of expanding the court to say 12, so each justice has only one circuit court other than Chief Justice to assist in making judgments more balanced?
Well, to your point, there is no question that the American people increasingly are losing confidence in the Supreme Court. And in large part because of the behavior of certain members of that court and because of certain rulings, including the Dobbs decision and taking away a precedent that had been in place for 50 years, protecting a woman's right to make decisions about her own body. So I do believe that there should be some kind of reform of the court, and we can study what that actually looks like. But I do believe, but again, let's just, while you raise the point of the court, understand that again, in 13 days, the American people will decide who is the next president of the United States. In 13 days, you will decide who is sitting in the Oval Office on January 20th. And on one hand, you have in Donald Trump, someone who has increasingly proved himself to be unstable, and who, as we have established and the people close to him have established, he is unfit to serve. Somebody who on January 20th, you can be sure, will spend full time, like we know, and we've seen the image mentally of him sitting in the dining room off of the Oval Office, watching for hours as people violently attack the Capitol. You can be sure, because he has said he would weaponize the Department of Justice to go after his political enemies, that you can look at a Donald Trump in the White House after January 20th, sitting in that Oval Office, plotting his revenge. He has talked about the enemies within. We haven't even raised that subject, Anderson. The enemies within. He's talking about the American people. He's talking about journalists, judges, nonpartisan election officials. He has talked about, as John Kelly has talked about, can he send the military after peaceful protesters? And he's going to sit there unstable, unhinged, plotting his revenge, plotting his retribution, creating an enemies list. I'm going to tell you, my list will be a list of how I address and continue to address the issues that you all are raising this afternoon and evening. It will be a to-do list about how we can impact the American people and lift up the American people and address some of the challenges that we continue to face.
I want to get one last questioner in. This is Elkin Pleat. He's a student at Temple University, registered Democrat, leaning towards voting for you, has yet to make up his final decision. Elkin.
Hi. First of all, go Birds, and hi I'm from Danville, California.
Oh, hi, Elkin.
But my question is, what is the proudest moment of your political career thus far, including when you were the AG?
Oh, that's a great one. I've actually had a few. One of them is I, as Attorney General of California, created what I named the Bureau of Children's Justice. And you may be familiar with that as a Californian. And it was because I believe that, frankly, we still have a lot to do in terms of policy that impacts children. And an investment in the children of our country is an investment in all of us and our future. And that work has actually produced significant results. That has been a proud moment for me. It was a proud moment for me to do the work that we've been doing that has addressed issues like maternal mortality. I mean, it's in response to an incredible tragedy, but lifting up that issue in a way that we agree that America should not have one of the highest maternal mortality rates in the world. So I have had the good fortune of, in my life as a public servant, knowing the impact that we can have. And I guess that is probably what motivates me most, because I know we can make a difference. I really do. And I do believe that the American people deserve a president
Medicare
who's
for
going to
all
be hardworking and, you know, will make mistakes from time to time, but it's focused on you. And I think that is so fundamental in this election. So fundamental. You deserve a president. I believe the American people deserve a president who's saying, look, let's just be practical. Let's get things done.
There we go. Practical.
Let's not be afraid of having a little joy to the point of, you know, what gives you What makes you feel good about your work? Let's do it in a way that is grounded in optimism. You know, the thing that I think we all know about who we are as the American people, we are people who are ambitious. We have aspirations, we have dreams. We are inherently optimistic.
No, God, please.
Inherently optimistic.
No.
And I think people are exhausted with the idea that we're just going to be divided and angry instead of working on the problems and working together. And that's what motivates me, and that's what makes me proud when we're able to do that. So,
Vice President Kamala Harris, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Anderson.
And thanks for watching. Thanks to all the voters here. Be sure to join CNN on November 5th for election night in America right here on CNN. Jake Tapper and Aaron Burnett pick it up right now.
All right, what I missed, tell me. How'd it go? Oh, wait, I need to be on the other side. My whole eye line.
It was,
How'd it go? What'd she say?
it was brilliant.
Yeah.
Oops, let me get this out of my ear before I
and
kill
undecided
myself. Oops.
Woof. How'd it go? What were the questions like? Was it good? Did she
It
solve
was
the problems?
100% scripted from the start to the end. Right from the order, they asked a pro-Palestinian question that she hobbled through. She gave all of her routine answers to everything, like didn't change a note from her simple non-answers. But they asked that, and then they went right to anti-Semitism question. You know, so it's all staged, start to finish, like a production for a commercial. And yeah, of course, closing on, you know,
Joy.
tell us the best thing you ever did in your life, you know,
Which was what? Her Jewish mother.
Proudest moment. I don't know what was her proudest moment. I don't even know what the answer was, but it was bullshit.
You know, this was a week ago. We keep talking about anti-Semitism, and it exists. Of course it exists. But like, there was a 7-year-old Muslim girl, her neck was slashed on October 8th, and nobody's talking about it. You know, and there are Jewish students walking around, ex-IDF students, who are upset by the sight of a keffiyeh. So like, I just don't want to hear about it. I really don't.
No, but I
any
think
Jewish person in the U.S. feels unsafe, and the Jews in Israel are more unsafe than they've ever been, and you are unsafer in Israel than you are in the U.S. So give me a break. Sorry.
No, I'm with you 100%. I mean, you can't, if you're going to bring up anti-Semitism and not reference all the true things that have actually happened. You're not talking about the protests being shut down, people being beaten, journalists being killed. I mean, it just goes on. But like, you can't pretend that people feeling unsafe is in scale to that stuff, to the starving a million people and
running
stop.
over them with your Caterpillar construction vehicle. Was that a lot of ex-Republicans? Was that the whole thing? It was like the Nikki Haley voters.
Yeah, the audience was stacked with, disenfranchised Trump, Republicans, disenfranchised Republicans. Could go either way, but, answer me on fracking and we'll see how that goes. And then, of course, a lot of moments to just hand over to her, say something empathetic, humanize yourself. Like,
right.
He asked, like, I know you lost your mom. What was that like to you? Like, how,
and that's why
nobody in the world,
dignity.
Nobody in the world is going, if I just know what happened to her mom and how she feels about losing her mom, and she answers this question right, I'm going to change my vote. Like, what a waste of fucking time. And that's because it's a commercial, obviously.
But, it's the same thing. Like, Joe Biden says that he would veto Medicare for all because in deference to his son, Beau, who died of brain cancer. And they're like, wait, what? Like, she talks about her mom who was diagnosed with cancer and how she understands that like people need dignity, but we're not going to talk about Medicare for all. We're going to do fill out a lot of forms. And if you're over a certain age, and then you can apply for assisted living. Like, I don't think anybody, clearly nobody is buying this. Trump is up now with everybody, right?
It felt like somebody said infomercial, but I'm thinking infomercial, but you know, those fake interviews with the doctor about, oh, this pill thing, you know, it felt like that a lot more than they normally do. They always feel a little bit like that, but they were like super safe with these questions and people they picked. Like, just no chance for her to blow it with a bad answer. But like, she didn't win anyone over, which is the whole point of her getting out here and taking any risk as she needs to, or she loses.
Because it's just all vibes, right? It's not about, there's no policy she talks about that is exciting people. That, you know, did you show any of the like that, the New York Times?
No, we didn't. I didn't get any slides because we only had, you know,
Yeah. I mean,
and in the breaks, you know, I'm like, hey, here's a cat video. I don't want to do this.
Good. Well, God,
I don't want to do this
I
solo.
came in for the last 2 minutes and I want to stab my ear holes.
Yeah.
Can
I just say one part you did miss?
Yeah. Oh God, tell me.
He called her out on, would you commit to, you know, does your economic opportunity plan or whatever, will you tax people over $400,000? You know, are those people going to get increases in taxes then? And she wouldn't answer it. Like 3 times in a row. She gave some sort of spin answers, which, you know, that was the only time she got any pushback from him, and she looked awful on it. So basically, no, I can't commit to that because and finally she pulled out at the end, small business owners, you know, at the end. She's like, that's my way out of that one.
She has Mark Cuban out there talking about how we're not going to do the capital gains tax. We're going to get rid of Lena Khan. So, you know, Tim Walz, they finally let him out of the basement so he could go and give a sort of populist speech. And he talks about Elon Musk prancing around or flitting around on the stage or whatever, acting like an asshole, which I agree, and wanting to buy an election at the same time that she's got her billionaires. And she had like the only good thing about Biden is Lena Khan and the FTC, and they want to get Gary Gensler, and they want to get rid of both of them, and they're very clear about it, and that's who she's going with. And so all they're doing now is their thing on Stein. Yeah.
I mean, obviously, they're literally running Liz Cheney at events with her, speaking down the home stretch here. But just today, Jamie Dixon. Diamond. Jesus.
He doesn't deserve for you to pronounce his name properly. Yeah.
Yeah. Fuck that
Jesse Morgan.
Dixie Chicks, Jimmy John. But JP Morgan CEO is voting for Kamala. So like this, and Democrats are like, yeah, we got the JP Morgan people on our side now.
Can I just block this thing? I mean, this has to be a bot, right? Like this isn't a real person YouTube user. It's annoying.
Who?
This guy, right? Can we get rid of him?
Oh, that's not a real person.
So I'm just going to ban that, right?
Yeah. Get the fuck out of here.
Bye. See ya.
Bye.
Go. We don't need any of that. Like I'm fine having a real discussion. How do I get him off though? With a person, but like there's no reason to have somebody spamming the chat. So I know it's really late, but we didn't even talk about the kind of crazy focused. I mean, it's gotten even worse. This whole anti-Jill Stein invective but like Lawrence O'Donnell had a 20-minute or 15-minute tirade against her. The New York Times is running pieces on pragmatism. And, you know, okay, so a lot of people who are really upset about like, listen, the choice is binary. It's either going to be Trump or Harris. So use your vote accordingly, right? Like that's their thing. But they stop on November 5th or whatever day the election is. And the truth is, it's not binary, because if you're not, like, you have to use your imagination a little bit and know that if Harris gets elected, what that tells the party closest to the left is that you can do a genocide. They are the party in power. People can say Trump will be worse. I don't know. We had him for 4 years. He didn't do a genocide. That you can do a genocide. You can abandon the climate. You can just say words like we believe in climate change, but we're still going to frack. You can abandon healthcare. You can abandon a living wage, but we'll still come out and vote for you. And all that has gotten us for 40 years is this, which is no healthcare, no living wage, no housing, no public
Yeah.
college, expanded cops, and a genocide.
If Kamala wins, there will be no pressure whatsoever for at least 3 years for Democrats to even pretend to be any left of this far right position that they've taken up now. And they will even say, they will use this as an excuse to be farther right. Like, well, it's super important.
Yeah.
We keep winning these moderate Republicans that
Yeah.
left the Republican Party. So let's just keep going there.
If she wins, what they will take from it is we don't need to listen to the left flank. We just keep needing to go after the Nikki Haley Republicans, the Dick Cheney Republicans. Exactly. And if she loses, they'll blame us. But either way, we're blamed. I will never endorse, never cast a vote for that. That is so dangerous. I think it's really dangerous.
Well, it is. All the things happening in this world are peaking right now to where it's like climate change, the economy, the 3 wars, and to not do anything about it now and just say, well, so where does the left wait for? Do we wait 4 years to take over the Democratic Party somehow? Like, you can't get things done electorally, so don't condone it, because at least you'll have people out there protesting this shit still. And under Trump, you will have that. You will have the left
You'll get the
raging,
death ticker.
and the
You'll
people
have a death ticker.
the people ignoring it all now because it's inconvenient and might harm the Democrats will join our side for it and realize this cost Democrats the election. If Kamala loses, it's going to be clear to most people that Palestine cost her the election. Other people are going to say it's just how disenfranchised we are with the Democratic Party because they lied to us forever. And that was me before Palestine. And that group was big enough before Palestine.
Yeah.
But Palestine is going to crystallize it for a lot of fucking people.
I hope so. And I also think it really needs, I hope that people in the rest of the world know if she loses. It's horrifying. Like, all of this is horrifying. Nobody wants Trump in power, right? Like, nobody wants Trump in power. But there's one party that's supposed to be the left wing. It's supposed to be the opposition to Republicans. And if we condone, Pat and I were making a list before the show, like all the things that they keep blaming, sorry, I'm dropping stuff. I had a lot to drink. It's later than we normally go. That they're like, oh, Obama was just out there saying we had a pandemic plan. Trump got rid of it. He killed 400,000 people. I don't know. Did Biden reinstate the pandemic plan and then kill? And they stopped at 800,000 people. They shut off all the data. Biden, with the fucking vaccine that was really effective initially, killed 800,000 people, told everyone to take off their masks, canceled OSHA protections, canceled sick pay, kicked people off of Medicare, canceled free testing, treating, vaccines, and refused to waive the patent because he's got donor from Bill Gates, who did not want for a second to lose a penny, and convinced Big Pharma that we cannot release the patent so that we could have vaccinated. We could have vaccinated the world. We could have been done with this, right? No. So I don't know.
Yeah, so there's no left. That's the problem with if this is our binary choice, it isn't Democrats versus Republicans. It's libertarians versus Republicans or something. Like it's like that. There is no more. Nobody cares about the climate anymore because she spent a lot of time tonight on fracking. Because they set it up like prove to me you're pro fracking enough. As if the Republicans themselves in half the states where they frack don't even support fracking. Like the population, and they keep saying it's all these jobs. Like jobs is the reason. There are very few fracking jobs. Like it's not like
more
an
people
industry
are employed,
full
like
of
in Pennsylvania, right? More people are employed doing clean energy than fracking. More people want clean energy than fracking because they actually have to live with the consequences of polluted air and water, right? So like It's all like, that's a lie. And you know, I heard a lot of liberals talking about like, oh, the whole thing with Trump going to McDonald's and it softened his image. And that's, yeah, okay, sure. You look at him at McDonald's and he feels kind of like a buffoon, but he feels like, and it's going to be the same, I'm sure, on Rogan as it was on what Andrew Schultz, is that the guy, that bro show that he did? It softens him. But what the Democratic Party is doing by softening the Cheneys and Jamie Dimon and billionaires, like, that's dangerous. That's really dangerous. But they still hate nature.
Cheney is no longer a villain to Democrats.
That's what I'm
the
saying.
fuck does that say? What the fuck?
That's what I'm saying. They softened it. They did it. Like, good. Send them all to McDonald's. But Democrats are the ones who have made George W. Bush taking a throat lozenge and Michelle hugging it. Like, George W. Bush is a fucking vile piece of scum, and Dick Cheney stole an election in 2000 with the Supreme Court, and they stopped counting. That was an insurrection that was successful. Like, they are evil.
You're bringing out Dick Cheney to argue for democracy. I don't know. It's not going to end well. It's going to end with Trump, and who knows where we go from there. But that's, look, she could still win this. It's not a coin flip. It's way more on Trump's side at this point than the media's letting
Dick
you know.
Cheney communist. That's hilarious. I mean, here's
Is
the
that
thing.
Jackson Hinkle's wing of the party?
Okay, so I need to get my pronunciation really correct. There is Jason Hickel, who's fantastic.
No, he's a good guy. Yes.
Yeah, climate scientist and like does he's wonderful.
He's the bad guy.
Jackson Hinkle is the MAGA communist.
Yeah, he's the MAGA communist nut job.
Yeah.
Grifter, complete grifter, went from Bernie to MAGA communism.
Yeah.
Treats women like shit, and just he's a Andrew Tate Republican at the core. But he gets followers from, you know, he's sharing pro-Palestine stuff. So that's got him a new audience to capture, and it's just chasing
I have to
the
tell
audience.
you, I've seen a lot of people share pro-Palestinian stuff that I really agree with. And then there is a segment of people doing that who are using it then to be like, that's always the Jews. Like, and they quote tweet or retweet people who are, and again, like the biggest Zionists are often anti-Semitic. Like, it's a weird, union, strange bedfellows, but it's there. And I feel like it's got to be
the connecting thread with the guy like Jackson Hinkle.
Yeah.
Is that, look, I'm all for harming the Democratic Party where it's honest and whatnot, but I think he's just flat out paid by some people. You know, I mean, I hate to say some of Russia's stuff is true, but like, to harm the Democratic Party, period. Which is why he harmed it from the left before, and now he can harm it from the left and right ish.
Yeah,
and now he can pretend that communists are actually on his side. Like, that's a thing. Like,
MAGA communists.
It's not a thing.
No. I do think it's really interesting and crazy. Okay, so I know we have but there was so much stuff that just came out, but like, this was a huge study that just came out that 1,000 Pennsylvania registered voters found that calling Trump a threat to democracy is Kamala Harris's least effective message with all voters, and especially working class voters. The most popular message were economic messages. Okay, that doesn't even show anything. The strong populist message was the strongest message. So if you want actually to win over those Republicans, not just the Wall Street Republican crowd, but they just don't. So like, what are we like? We're not pushing her left. She won't even pretend to get elected. She won't pretend to be left. But we know what's popular.
They're courting the Republicans with the least liked Republicans. You know, I mean, like,
has anybody lost an election? An incumbent lost as hard as Liz Cheney? No, I think she's like historically.
But I mean, what that showed right there, that poll, is that, you know, they're running on the issue that is the least likely to change people's minds. And it's because they can't run on policy. They don't have policy. They just don't have it. There's none. They can't differentiate yourself from Republicans on policy. There was one point tonight where Anderson Cooper was talking about the wall, and he's kind of like, well, so you support some wall. It was kind of like the one moment
Like
I thought was
the Mexico wall. Is that what you're talking about?
yeah. But not the third wall. Fourth estate that I was calling
Fourth
earlier.
estate. That was good. That's a good callback.
That's a callback.
I like it.
Remember?
That's comedy.
But yeah, strategically, they're doing everything wrong, which is why I say Trump's going to win this thing.
I think he is too. I mean, all of this listeria stuff, and I'm seeing people post things about how Trump defunded the FDA. Great. But we've had a President Biden for 3.5 years, and just last month, he defunded and decreased testing for listeria. The wall that was so heinous, and the separations of children from their parents at the border. I mean, let's just go through all of the stuff that he has not done, right? Migrant children, close to 1,000 migrant children separated by Trump, yet to be returned. That was in 2023. Oh, Biden is still separating immigrant kids from their family. How about the Cuba sanctions? They just lost their power grid for several days. People die when that happens. That means hospitals aren't up and running in the way they need to be. That means that people don't have air conditioning when it is incredibly hot. That means that some water purifying systems aren't up and running. But you know what? Biden actually tightened the grip of sanctions on Cuba. So all of these things where they talk about oh, well, Trump deregulated and Trump did more sanctions and Trump got us out of the Iran nuclear deal. Why aren't we back in it?
Look, if you take emotion out of it and rhetoric out of it, he was way better for the world than Biden was. And Kamala has shown no inclination to step away and say she's different on any level. And there's no sign that she is. I mean, she's taking us farther right than Biden ever was. By design, intentionally, she's way to the right of Biden. So
you think she's to the right of Biden?
Oh yeah, Kamala.
Really? Why do you say that? I'm just curious.
I mean, the border, the tough on cops, the top cop,
right, yeah.
Pro fracking, that's all to the right of Biden. And I'm not saying Biden didn't want that stuff too, but for that now being part of the public rhetoric on this stuff.
Right. I mean, at least he lied about it trying to get into office.
Yeah, they're done lying about stuff that the left really fucking cares about.
Yeah.
Which is really dangerous if they win with that.
That is, I mean, I just keep coming back to that because the strategy of voting lesser evil has gotten it to they don't care about us. They're not pretending to care. They're locking up protesters. One of the first things that Biden did, the administration, was the list of domestic violent extremists, which included people who are anti-capitalist, who are climate activists. They're in democratic states at liberal colleges, locking up protesters who have peaceful encampments on campus. People who wear keffiyehs are being called, terrorists. I mean, cop cities are happening in blue states with blue governors and blue mayors. I think people have to look beyond November 5th. It has to be a long-term strategy.
Absolutely.
It cannot just be
long-term enough to not even matter what happens in 2028, because that's not going to rescue us either. We're no matter what happens with the party, you're not going to get enough people in the party, and the party is not going to suddenly change and care in time to do anything about the climate. We've already passed that window, but we're still letting that go. Cop cities are being built. They're shutting down protesters. We're expanding this war into fight Iran. We're proud that China is now backing up Russia. I mean, everything is falling apart. So, you know, we can't just, hey, in 2026, we'll get a couple more Democrats and then Kamala can get stuff done.
I just need two more Democrats. You guys give me a
more
bill and I'll
Democrats.
take care of it. Like, there are so many things. Do you remember when the American Prospect was doing? I think David Dayen was the one who was like in charge of the list. And it was like 115 different measures that Biden could enact on day one. Everything from huge things like Medicare for all. We're in the middle of a global pandemic, which continues to this day. But it was like, you know, canceling student debt. And then there were more minor things, but, you know, a lot of climate issues, nothing. And then they're going to say, oh, wow, the Supreme Court just gave Trump the right to be a dictator from day one. You have that right now, and you could use it for something good. And the more good things that people see happening, the only time that Biden had a high approval rate was when people were getting the child tax credit. And they were like, I mean, God, it's so small. There's like one thing that he did. Like, fuck.
Yeah, I mean, a couple crumbs win you the election, but no, let's just keep going with the genocide is what it comes down to.
That's our money. Like, it's actually our money. It's the craziest thing. Elon Musk is a billionaire because he gets government subsidies for his electric vehicles and his surveillance, like, military
Satellites.
shit. Yeah. And the same, like, it's our money goes to these people who then buy the people in power to legislate against all of us. And then they throw some big gala and do a philanthropy and try to wash their images by giving a few crumbs to the very people who are being harmed by the system they created. Yeah. And yeah,
Well,
thank you. Exactly. Why the fuck is Louis DeJoy still there?
But here's the thing. If you watched her town hall, you might have thought differently tonight, because she is going to deregulate the housing industry, which is going to be great for people. It's going to be great to get rid of all the red tape that's stopping houses from being built. I mean, we have there's something like 15 houses for 15 empty houses for every homeless person, but somehow magically loosening the regulations on banks, not we're talking about banks is what she's going to do, is going to solve all this homeless problem.
Meanwhile, there was just an article that BlackRock owns more properties than any other single entity. And I think there are 28 empty homes for every homeless person.
So not
when
15?
They say how,
I thought it was 15.
Well, I don't know. I
fact
need
check.
to,
Somebody fact check this.
Somebody fact check. I'm gonna see if I can find it really fast.
I hope you have the bigger number that's wrong, because I usually exaggerate.
I know. I'm gonna be like 99% of the people. But like, I really, this is scary, and people aren't talking about it in our news. So 300,000 homes in the US are owned by Blackstone. 16 million vacant houses, 28 for every homeless person. Stop building McMansions that no one can afford.
And look, build whatever you want, but banks should not be owning properties, because they're just holding and hoarding.
Yeah.
It's not in
And
the
they're
public
setting
interest.
prices
We
in
do so much
neighborhoods.
stuff with our money that is not in our interest. And Palestine crystallized that, I think, for a lot of people. But
yeah,
it's everything. And so deregulation is not the answer. Nobody's like, oh, let's cut the red tape so that there could be more houses. That's entirely virtuous. It's not virtuous. It's signaling to corporate donors, to banks, that the left is a place for corporations. That's why Jamie Dixon, JP Morgan head, is now on. That's why Jimbo
Jamie
Dixon, whatever. That's why they're all on board with them now, because they're signaling to them that, hey, the Democrats are we're more neoliberal and corporate than Republicans now, because honestly, Trump is just as big a shitbag, but like it's self-interest to him. So he's going to help the industries that help him, but he's more of a threat to things like Silicon Valley in some ways than Kamala, because if he's not going to profit from it, it's not entirely.
It's all transactional for both of them, but he's more honest about it. I mean, because
but she plays the game more for the donors, and she's an emptier slate. And I'm not trying to lobby that he's some, wrecking ball who's just going to do things for the people, because that's bullshit.
No,
he's going to do it for himself.
Yeah.
But she's going to do it for the donors. So he has the potential to do something that could accidentally help people.
I mean, he's still doing it for the donors, but it's like way more just like individually transactional. So
yes, that
is why, like, he got along with Kim Jong-il, right? And it's not, listen, when people make fun of that, liberals are like, oh my God, he's like cozying up to dictators. Okay, what are we doing with Saudi Arabia? What are we doing with Egypt? What are we doing with Netanyahu? Like, we're cozying up to plenty of evil people. So the more people you can find, I mean, and it's not that I want to sanction human rights violations or like slaughtering journalists. Obviously, I don't think we should be cozying up to people and giving them arms. That's not what I'm saying. But like, we find a way to have diplomacy with some people, but like, oh no, Putin's worse than Hitler. Putin was trying many different times to have a truce, right? To come to some sort of peace agreement. But we decided, no, he is not somebody we can ever find peace with. You don't need to find peace with your friends. The people you need to find peace with are your enemies. So like, if you've decided that your enemies are people you can't find peace with, then what the fuck are you doing? No, Lynn, I am. Totally. And yes, he is. Canceled elections. Oh my God, I didn't mute you, but this is so funny. I'm going to keep talking. It's like my rant. No, yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, we've kept people a long time. I think we should.
Oh my God, it's 7:40.
Probably wrap this up.
Okay, no, you're right. I'm sorry I had to leave. I'm so happy that you guys hung out and we're still here. Thank you. There's so much depressing stuff, but it is really nice to be talking about it with all of you in community. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you guys for sticking around and stumbling through that word salad debate. And I appreciate that, but we suffered together. So let's end on one good thing.
Misery loves company.
Do you want to set it up?
Yeah. Status Coup doing heroic work, always on the ground, covering protests and people just, doing their best. And so this is protest. They started at Fox. They went to New York Times, but it starts at Fox. It's great. And, just shut them down. These people are liars and they are genocide enablers. So whatever you can do to put a wrench in the system. Cheers to all of you guys. We love you. Thank you so much. Keep punching up.
Cheers.
All right, so we just got to News Corp. This is the home of Fox News. All right, see? Not you guys, but the other people.